ND 2000. In Kimlaska shall be born one who inherits the power of Lorelei. He will be a boy of royal blood with hair of red. He shall be called the Light of the Sacred Flame, and he will lead Kimlaska Lanvaldir to new prosperity. ND 2002. The one who would seize glory shall destroy the island upon which he was born, a land by the name of Had. War shall thereafter persist between Kimlaska and Malkuth for a full cycle of the seasons.
With longing intent, Luke von Fabra, a child of nobility and prisoner within his family's estate, gazes upon the sky. Here, Luke has been condemned to live until adulthood, under his parents' and his guards' watchful eyes. Only once married will he be allowed to leave, at which point he would merely become a prisoner in another home. This home imprisonment, which is meant to keep him safe, being a response to a kidnapping Luke experienced years earlier that caused the total loss of his memories prior to the event. By all accounts, the morning seems to bear the hallmarks of this being yet another in a long line of ordinary days. Luke shares a visit with his friend, Guy Cecil, who had snuck into the manor to see him. He talks to the estate's gardener, Per, and is later scolded for it by Ramdas, who believes nobles should not fraternize with commoners. And perhaps more ominously, Luke convenes with a voice that speaks to him in his head, though he struggles, as he long has, to understand its purpose or intent. Things only take a turn when he is summoned by his father to a meeting in the drawing room. Here, Luke learns that Phone Master Ion, the leader of the Order of Lorelei, Aldrin's main religious body, has gone missing. Also attending this meeting is General Van Grant, a swordmaster Luke holds in very high adoration. Van announces that due to his duty as Commandant of the Oracle Knights, the military power of the Order of Lorelei, he must leave the city and join the search party for the Phone Master. Before Van is to go, however, he promises Luke a sword lesson. Luke arrives for the lesson in the family's courtyard, where he sees Van and Guy in close discussion, though Guy excuses himself shortly after. As the sword lesson gets underway, another engagement is happening at the opposite end of the estate. Using the power of phonic hymns, a sort of magical particle energy, a mysterious intruder named Tyr makes her way from room to room, putting the guards to sleep with her song. Arriving in the courtyard, she announces herself by calling to Van and naming him a traitor. With no hesitation, she lunges at him with intent to kill. While her back is turned, Luke attempts to get the upper hand and takes a swing, only Tyr is too quick. She spins to face him, blocking his attack when something happens. The voice Luke hears in his head speaks, only this time it's very clear.
Resound. The will of Lorelei shall reach you, and open the way.
Not that weird voice again.
These sympathetic phonons in their bodies resonate with one another. Light envelops them. The moment passes, and the two awake to find themselves on a grass-crested precipice beside the ocean. Tyr explains to Luke what happened, how they were teleported due to the hyperresonance caused from the phonons in their bodies. Luke and Tyr are both what is known as seventh phonists. She surmises as well that it was because of Luke's power as a seventh phonist that his family has been keeping him so protected. Using the position of the ocean as a guide, Tyr gets a rough idea of their bearings, and the two head out with intent on getting Luke back home. They locate a coachman a short distance away who says he can take them to the capital, only they quickly learn it is not Batical, the capital of Kimlaska, that they are heading to. The party is nowhere near where they assumed. Rather, this coachman is taking them to Grand Kokma, the capital of Malkuth, a nation with whom Luke's family and homeland of Kimlaska Lanvaldir has had a growing tension with, teetering on the brink of war. En route to their destination, through the window of the coach, Luke and Tyr witness a massive ship known as the Tartarus. At the moment, it is engaging in combat with a small skiff piloted by members of a bandit troop known as the Darkwings. The Darkwings escape towards Kimlaska and stop the Tartarus pursuit by destroying the local bridge. The bridge Luke and Tyr needed to get back to Batical. Understanding the full picture now, Luke and Tyr continue their journey on foot, heading first to the small village known as Engeve, from which they will plot a new course of action. As Luke and Tyr explore Engeve, Luke gets a hard lesson on the economics of the world, having tried to take fresh fruit from the local store without paying, not even aware of what money actually was. Tyr does her best to get him out of trouble, but to some extent, the damage is already done, and she slowly begins to realize the depths of Luke's ignorance, as caused by his memory loss and life of imprisonment. When it comes to light that a large supply of the town's food has gone missing from their storehouse, the townsfolk quickly point the finger at Luke, and Luke is brought in for questioning. This event leads to Luke being introduced to two new people: General Jade Curtis, the pilot of the Tartarus, and Phone Master Ion, the Grand Master of the Order of Lorelei, who informs the room that an animal known as the Cheagle was responsible for the theft of the food. Having cleared his name, Luke is once again a free man. However, with the Phone Master being here and accounted for, new suspicions arise about Van, and whether or not the Phone Master was actually missing. Heading to the inn to rest for the night, Luke and Tyr encounter a petite girl named Annis. Annis is currently in search of Ion, as she is his sworn protector. Luke and Tyr inform her where they had last seen him, and also tell her, to her shock, that there were reports of Ion being missing. Annis takes off, and Luke and Tyr rest for the night. Though the intent was to travel to Kitesor checkpoint at dawn, Luke decides it is of utmost importance that he head to Cheagle Woods and catch the animals responsible for the food theft, thus clearing his name on more than just somebody's testimony. And so the first of many spontaneous detours begins. As they arrive at Cheagle Woods, they encounter Phone Master Ion, seemingly in trouble. Cornered, Ion unleashes a Dothic phonic art, a form of phonic art aptly named after its homeland of Doth. Though the art saves his life, it also drains him quite substantially, and he collapses. Luke and Tyr rush to Ion's aid and make official introductions, where their last meeting did not allow the opportunity. Tyr announces her position as an Oracle Knight to Ion. However, before more can be said, Luke spots a stray Cheagle and goes on the pursuit. Luke locates the Cheagles taking shelter in the hollow of a tree deep within the woods. The elder Cheagle inside the tree confesses openly to stealing the town's food. In order to appease a group of Ligers who had their home burned by one of the resident Cheagles, they must provide them food, lest they become the creature's food themselves. Ion suggests taking a Cheagle to the Liger encampment to negotiate with them, and the team agrees on the course of action. The Cheagle named Mew is chosen for the task, as he's the one who caused the fire that pushed the Ligers from their home to begin with. The Elder then gives Mew the Sorcerer's Ring, allowing Mew the ability to speak the language of the humans and also control his fireball ability. The team heads further into the woods and tracks down the Liger Queen deep within the forest. She stands guard over her nest of eggs, and the negotiations do not go as planned. As a battle begins, Jade arrives on scene to save the day, and the Liger Queen is defeated, destroying her eggs in the process. With the battle won, Jade joins the party and they head back to the Cheagle's tree to deliver the news. Once here, Mew is exiled from his tribe for causing the Liger problem, and is promptly put in the servitude of Luke. And this is not exactly to Luke's pleasure. At the exit of the Cheagle Woods, Annis arrives with the Tartarus. Jade then turns on his new party and orders his soldiers to arrest Luke and Tyr, stating that they are the ones who have been emitting the 7th phonons. In custody, being questioned by Jade, Luke reveals his full name and subsequently where he's from. It's determined, however, that the two being trespassers into Malkuth was an accident and not at all an act of aggression. Jade explains that he is currently on his way to Kimlaska to negotiate a peace treaty. Tensions between Malkuth and Kimlaska have been rising, and war seems very likely. As such, Jade would like Luke, with his status as a noble, to negotiate in the formation of these peace treaties. While aboard the Dreadnought Tartarus, a number of additional things are discussed as well. Luke and Jade discuss the kidnapping Luke experienced at 10 years old. Though Malkuth was blamed for the kidnapping, Jade seems to have no knowledge of it. In a meeting between Ion, Jade, Luke, and Tyr, it is discussed that Emperor Peony has reached out to Malkuth to discuss a peace treaty and requested Ion's aid as a neutral ambassador. It is also revealed that discord is rising within the Order of Lorelei itself, and the religion has split into two distinct factions. The reformist Phone Master faction centered around Ion versus the conservative Grand Maestro faction centered around Grand Maestro Mose. Ion insists that Mose is looking for a war and took Ion into custody, something he only escaped with the help of the Malkuth military. Tyr can't believe that Mose would do such a thing, but insists that she is not aligned with him, rather she is neutral. Luke, having been given the task of entering discussion with his uncle about the proposed peace treaty while Ion is transporting a letter to Kimlaska, has once again managed to leap from the frying pan only to find himself in the fire when the Tartarus is suddenly invaded. Ligers, Griffins, and a new foe known as Largo the Black Lion, one of 6 god generals of the Oracle Knights, descend upon the ship. Largo states that he is here to reclaim Ion, though Jade, who Largo refers to as the Necromancer, refuses him any access. Largo makes a move, sealing Jade's phonic arts. Mew leaps into action to cause a distraction. Annis takes the opportunity to escape with Ion while Jade goes in for a kill, plunging his spear through Largo. Luke, watching from the sidelines, sees Largo's blood spilled before his very eyes, and realizes for the first time the seriousness of the situation. Royal arrogance cannot see him through this. Largo then teleports away, leaving it unclear if he had survived or not. And now Jade, Luke, and the rest of the team must take back the Tartarus. As they make their way across the ship, they arrive at the bridge. Due to state secrets being held within, Tyr and the party enter the bridge, leaving Luke and Mew behind. As they wait, and Mew tells Luke about the 7th phonons contained within his body, Luke's outbursts cause a nearby guard to become alert. Luke defends himself. Scared and in a panic, Luke stabs the guard, killing him. Luke is devastated as the party returns, but they are not left much time to ruminate on the development. More guards descend upon them, ultimately knocking out Luke and Tyr.
Luke, heed my voice. Luke.
Luke awakens to Tyr's voice. Jade, Luke, and Tyr are imprisoned once again aboard the Tartarus. Luke is still in shock over killing another human and wants no part in the ongoing fight. Yet Ion must be saved. Begrudgingly, Luke agrees to continue. Jade springs them from the prison cell and engages the Tartarus's emergency shutdown, allowing them a window of time to escape the Tartarus. The god generals are currently not aboard the ship, so the party devises a plan to spring an ambush on them as they return. It doesn't take very long, but the god generals approach the Tartarus with Ion in tow, so the ambush is sprung. Luke and the party stand at pretty even odds against the attending god generals. However, they lose their advantage shortly after God General Lagretta recognizes Tyr among the party. The party ends up pinned, and God General Arietta is ordered to restrain the team when suddenly Guy shows up on scene to turn the tides of battle. In the brief moment of ensuing confusion, Jade takes Arietta hostage, leveraging her life against their enemies to force them into the prison cells aboard the Tartarus. With the current threat neutralized, Ion informs the party that their enemies had stolen Emperor Peony's letter while he was captive. Annis attempted to retrieve the letter but was knocked out of a porthole by a monster and went missing. However, Ion and Annis had a contingency plan should they be separated, so the party heads to the determined rendezvous point in St. Binah with Guy in tow. Along the way, the team stops for a rest and catches Guy up on everything that's happened thus far. The party also learns of Guy's fear of women, as he recoils from the opportunity to shake Tyr's hand in a display of acquaintanceship. Guy informs the party as well that he's here on the order of Duke Fabra to find Luke, and that Van is also looking for Luke. Suddenly, enemies close in on the party. Though the opportunity is there, Luke hesitates to make the necessary killing blow on their aggressors. Tyr intercepts the enemy's blow, saving Luke's life but taking injury in the process, while Guy finishes him off. Luke is once again shaken by the reality of his situation, and the conflict within him is deep and obvious to his traveling companions. At a campfire chat later that night, Tyr feels bad for neglecting Luke's position, and overestimating his world experience and willingness to do what is necessary on their journey. Guy talks about how killing people isn't considered a crime if it's not for personal malice. He says he's killed many people, but he does so because he is scared and he doesn't want to die. He jokes he still has things to live for, such as revenge. Meanwhile, Ion laments that the Order of Lorelei has stopped being a religion of life. The team then takes rest and continues to St. Binah in the morning. Though the team offers to allow Luke to sit out on the fighting, he strengthens his resolve once again and offers to put up arms, to fight to survive. If it's kill or be killed, he will kill. The worry and insecurity, however, is clear in Luke's eyes as he decides this. Though he knows what he will do and what he must do, and he wants to be the responsible and dependable person his team needs him to be, he's not sure if it's what he should do. There must be a better way. But where? At St. Binah, the party hitches a ride aboard a wagon to sneak past the security check at the gates. Once inside, they meet with a man named Glenn McGovern. From McGovern, they retrieve a new letter that Annis wrote and left in his possession. The letter states that she fled to Location 2 when the Oracle Knights arrived in St. Binah, but she's still keeping you-know-what safe. So the team must now head to Kitesor, the second location, a place Van is expected to be at as well. On the way out, the 6 god generals are spotted at the St. Binah front gate. Largo yet lives. The God Generals make the decision to withdraw the troops from St. Binah to give Largo more time to heal. The party then discusses how Mose orders Van, and Van orders the 6 God Generals. However, Tyr still won't believe it and insists Van is attempting to start a war independent of Mose, though Luke feels that Van would not try to start a war either. Before leaving St. Binah, they rest at an inn where Ion explains the happenings of his abduction. The God Generals had taken him to a local Sephiroth while captive. He won't say what occurred there, however, as it's confidential to the Order. Jade wonders silently if Ion is the same as Luke, though it's not explained what same as Luke exactly entails. In the morning, they leave for Kitesor. Since yet another bridge is out, they must cross through the Fubras River. At the far end of the river, God General Arietta intercepts the team with a Liger in tow. After informing the party they killed her guardian mother, the Liger Queen, a creature that has taken care of her since she lost her real parents in the Hod War, a war that resulted in the destruction and erasure of the entire town, she swears to exact her revenge. But before the battle can really get underway, an earthquake occurs, releasing poisonous miasma into the air, causing her to collapse. Tyr sings one of Yulia's phonic hymns, which cancels out the miasma. This hymn is one of 7 left behind by Yulia. It was believed that these hymns were indecipherable, yet Tyr evidently knows at least one of them. When the miasma is quelled, Jade prepares to kill Arietta while she is passed out. Luke and Ion plead for him to reconsider, and hesitantly, he abides. The team then moves Arietta to a safe location and leaves the Fubras River with her behind. Before arriving at Kitesor, Jade confronts Tyr over her phonic hymns. Tyr admits that they are Yulia's phonic hymns. She claims her family may be a descendant of Yulia, and that is how she knows the hymns, but will not divulge anymore. Jade takes great interest in this and would also like to know more about Yulia's grand phonic hymn, a hymn of legendary power said to be made up of all of the lost hymns, though those would all be lessons for another day. In Kitesor, a town built directly on the border of Kimlaska and Malkuth, the party locates Annis. Her ID is lost, so the guards will not let her through the central border. Upon their reunion, however, there is a surprise confrontation with God General Ash. Before this confrontation can see through to any sort of conclusion, Van arrives and orders him away. Van and the party take to the local inn for civil discussion. He claims the God Generals are likely acting on Mo's orders and not his when they attack Luke's party. Van also claims to not side with the Grand Maestro faction of the Order of Lorelei. Van continues to ask Tyr about her secret mission, if she is indeed looking for the 7th phone stone. The 7th phone stone being part of Yulia's score. Yulia's score being written 2,000 years prior, broken up and scattered throughout the world. A score that is believed to carry written details of the world's future upon it. Tyr, however, cannot say, as her mission given to her by Grand Maestro Mose is top secret and she intends to keep it that way. The conversation continues. They discuss how Kimlaska and Malkuth went to battle over ownership of these 7 phone stones, as any one person or nation who holds all 7 can know the full future. The meeting then comes to a close and Van gifts the party some passports, allowing them to cross the border and head to Kitesor Naval Port. Arriving at the port, the party discovers a scene developing in the aftermath of some alleged chaos. Van holds Arietta at sword point, claiming she unleashed her monsters on the ship, a task she claims Ash asked her to do. With the ship destroyed, Arietta then kidnaps the only man who can repair it. Making her escape, she claims she'll be holding him hostage at Choral Castle, and if the party wants him back, Luke and Ion must meet her there to retrieve him. Choral Castle is a vacation home of Duke Fabra that he abandoned when the front line of the last war drew near to it. It is also where Luke was found after being kidnapped 7 years ago. Van tries to dissuade the team from going to Choral Castle and attempts to send them back to the border. The team, however, decides that not going to Choral Castle would undermine the score and Yulia's teachings. Guy also claims that he has something he wants to investigate there, so the decision is made. They take off and a short while later arrive at Choral Castle, a dilapidated, haunted-looking manor. The party makes their way through the castle slowly, inspecting every room, turning every stone. In the lower levels, a large machine is discovered. Jade has an idea of what it is, but isn't certain and seems hesitant to speak it out loud. This all makes Guy suspicious of Jade, but before he can question him, Annis jumps to Guy for protection, having been spooked by a bat. Guy freaks out and collapses to the floor to recover his emotions. Guy admits now that his recoiling at a female's touch may be related to a moment in his memory that he is missing. missing, and that he was never like this as a child. The memory he's missing is that of his family's death. After a brief conversation, they carry on. They find Arietta on the roof waiting with her captured engineer. Using one of her creatures, she separates Luke from the team. The creature carries Luke to Dist, another of the god generals. When Luke comes to, he finds himself inside the large machine in the lower depths. Dist and Sync talk nearby about their findings, having analyzed Luke with the machine. Guy busts in on the scene, attacking Sync and grabbing the data disk. In the attack, Guy knocks Sync's mask off and recognizes the man underneath. However, the details are not revealed to the party at this time. Just then, the rest of the team arrives. Guy is distracted. Sync lands a kick to Guy's jaw and makes his escape before anybody else can see him maskless. Guy tells the team about the disc he recovered, but refrains from mentioning Sync's real identity. Jade says he'll examine the disc later. For now, they have unfinished business. They head to the roof to confront Arietta again. Arietta voices her desire for vengeance following the party's killing of the Liger Queen, her guardian mother. She also voices her need to take Ion back, who she believes the party to be kidnapping. After a brief fight that sees Arietta defeated, Jade intends again to kill her. Ion stops him and says he'll take Arietta back for an inquiry before the Order of Lorelei. Van arrives on the rooftop unannounced and says he'll take Arietta into custody on behalf of the Order. With that, the party resumes their regular schedule. Having saved the engineer, they head back to Kitesor Port to board the ship. At the port, while the ship is still being repaired, Luke and his party are summoned to a meeting with General Van and Commander Almondine. Almondine mentions meeting Luke before. However, this would be before Luke was kidnapped, so of course he has no recollection of it. Van has informed Almondine of Arietta's actions, so Ion pleads for Almondine to show mercy and forgive his servant's mistakes. Almondine acquiesces and trusts Ion and the Order of Doth to deal with her appropriately. Luke gets Almondine to send a carrier pigeon to his father in Batical, informing him that he, along with some company, will be returning shortly. At the mention of his company, Almondine is shocked to learn that Jade the Necromancer is among the group. The meeting draws to a close and the party sets sail the next morning. On the ride over, Luke starts to hear voices again. Luke is summoned to meet with Van on the deck, but before making it there, something begins to overtake his body. He's conscious but lacks agency. The voice in his head speaks again.
Show me your power. The same power as mine.
As Van arrives, he sees Luke struggling. He calmly gives Luke guidance and talks him down like he's done it before. When Luke regains control, Van tries to explain the event to him as a hyper-resonance. Van continues and tells Luke of his childhood captivity. He explains that Luke wasn't kept locked in this mansion for his safety, but for the safety of others, as Luke is the only person in existence who can cause a hyper-resonance on his own. A hyper-resonance can form and destroy any matter, and lacking control of it, Luke posed a credible threat to those around him. Van tells Luke that this power could also be used as a great weapon, and that Malkuth wanted him for that purpose when they abducted him years back. Luke now realizes that at age 20, he wouldn't actually be free. His prison cell would just be changed. He would wait in this new cell until one military power or another needed his ability. Van convinces Luke that if they could avert the pending war, it would end the need for Luke to be imprisoned any longer, and that Luke's power could be a key factor in ending the tensions between Kimlaska and Malkuth. Van states that the correct use of his power could make him a hero while gaining him his freedom as well. Such words are like sweet honey to Luke, and he decides then to commit himself to the task of ending the growing tensions and budding war between Kimlaska and Malkuth, to be the hero the two lands needs. The ship makes port in Kessadonia, a state given autonomous status by the Phone Master for their economic and political contributions. Van departs here to take care of Arietta, leaving Luke and the party to continue their journey to Batical on their own. While in the Kessadonia market, Luke is approached by Noir, an aloof, busty temptress, one of the members of the Dark Wings they had previously seen engaged in combat with the Tartarus upon first landing in Malkuth. The meeting is short and results in Tyr preventing her from pickpocketing the blissfully ignorant and smitten Luke. While waiting for yet another ship to take them from Kessadonia, Luke and the party head out to find a local by the name of Mr. Astor who can help extract the data from the disc recovered at Choral Castle. Mr. Astor, who happens to own Kessadonia, has one of his aides analyze and print out the findings of the disc. The report is large, however, and will need to be read through later aboard the ship. On the way back to the ship, Sync suddenly appears and catches Guy in a surprise attack. He recovers the phone disc from the party. During the attack, he also creates a magic symbol along Guy's arm, the effects of which are not yet known. The team runs with the printed out report in hand and escapes onto the ship. Out of the party's earshot, Sync tells God General Dist that the mark he left on Guy's arm is a curse slot. Guy is now susceptible to Sync's control. Sync orders Dist to dispose of the documents from the Famicry project. Aboard the ship, Guy is looking through the data disk's report and believes part of them to be missing. Jade analyzes the documents as well, identifying them as isophone charts. The party takes this opportunity to teach Luke about isophones, phonons, and Famicry, a practice of science used to create copies of phonons. However, the frequencies are not the same, so it does not create isophones. Immediately on the heels of this lecture, the ship is attacked from the direction of Caledonia. The attack comes from members of the Oracle Knights looking to take over the ship. At the front of the ship, the party encounters God General Dist. Jade and Dist, former friends and allies, fall into a familiar routine of banter back and forth, hazing one another. In a chance moment, Dist snatches the data analysis from Jade, but Jade, always one step ahead, claims to have it all memorized already. Angered, Dist launches his attack, though he is swiftly defeated and sent careening off into the horizon. The rest of the trip continues uninterrupted. When the ship makes port, General Cecil escorts the party so Ion can meet with the king. On the way to the castle, the party spots the Dark Wings talking to what looks like an Oracle soldier in Baticle's center square. The two groups haze each other and move on. Some of the group seems to think the Dark Wings resemble an old circus troupe. Hazing ensues once again when a few of the town girls corner and tease Guy over his fear of women. Upon his return home, Luke sadly feels no different than visiting any other town. He's a stranger everywhere except the estate he was imprisoned in, and even there he feels he's not reaching the sense of self-worth and accomplishment he longs for. Arriving at the castle, Luke heads in to speak with his uncle, King Ingobert. However, the king is currently holding an audience with Grand Maestro Mose. Against the guards and Phone Master Ion's wishes, Luke enters anyway. Once at the meeting, the letter Jade had been carrying is passed over to Alpine. Luke catches the tail end of some of Mose's claims to the king and interjects, feeling Mose is feeding the king lies about the state of things in Malkuth. Luke insists that though he hasn't been to the capital, Malkuth is actually peaceful. Their audience with the king is brought to a quick halt, however. The party makes plans to leave and kill time at Luke's manor with intent to rest at the castle later that evening. Mose requests Tyr stay behind to brief him on the mission he had given her, though they compromise, allowing Tyr to escort Luke to the manor and return directly after. Mose excuses himself and the king tells Luke that his mother Susanna has fallen ill. The party now heads to the manor. At the mansion, there is no grand warm welcome for Luke and his traveling companions. Duke Fabra seems to be in the middle of something. He insinuates to Tyr that her brother Van has been conspiring, but as to what, he does not fully reveal. The Duke leaves then for the castle. With Van inbound for Baticle, General Cecil leaves to the port to head him off. Further into the manor, the party meets Princess Natalia. Natalia and Luke are expected to marry. Natalia informs Luke that Van is suspected for being behind Luke's sudden disappearance from the manor and is likely to be arrested or possibly executed. Ion and Luke scramble to find a way to prevent it, insisting that he wasn't involved at all. Natalia offers help and leaves to speak with King Ingobert. Before leaving, the party visits Susanna. Tyr apologizes to her and assures her Luke's disappearance was a mistake. With this last bit of business taken care of for the day, everybody goes their separate ways and Luke is left once again where he started. His mission to return home, safe and sound, has seemingly come to a close, and his lifetime of adventure has ended. Until, of course, it continues again the next day. The next morning, Luke is summoned to the castle by Princess Natalia. On his way in, he overhears Mose and Tyr in private conversation.
Then the seventh phone stone is in Akzeriuth?
Yes, it's likely that Luke will also wind up going there, and...
Noticing Luke, the conversation comes to an end. Mose, Tyr, and Luke head into the throne room where they find Jade, Aldine, Duke Fabra, Natalia, and Ingobert already in attendance. They get right down to business. The letter from Malkuth that was provided by Jade proposed a peace treaty with Kimlaska, but also a request for aid. Alpine explains about a mining city in Malkuth named Akzeriuth. Akzeriuth has been facing a disaster recently, with local cave-ins and an outpouring of miasma making the citizens sick. Miasma is also blocking the road to Akzeriuth, preventing Malkuth rescue parties from being able to help their own citizens. At this meeting, Luke is named Kimlaska Lanvaldir's Goodwill Ambassador, so he is to travel to Akzeriuth. Since Van's guilt is not proven, he will be released from his imprisonment and made to aid Luke in his mission. Luke leverages his position to strike a deal that his helping Akzeriuth will mean Van is granted his freedom. During the meeting, there is a reading from the 6th Phone Stone. This reading is about a prophecy. It specifically talks about somebody who looks like Luke traveling to the mines, but the prophecy is not complete. It is revealed to Luke then for the first time that he is the chosen youth spoken of on the 6th Phone Stone. Luke reflects on his conversation with Van and the feeling he had when he heard he could be a hero. They all talk about how Luke will be a hero, but Jade questions the use of the word, perhaps knowing a bit more. The meeting then concludes and Luke leaves to see Van in the prison. During their private meeting, Van asks if Luke will join him as an Oracle Knight. He tells him that he doesn't want him to be an ambassador, that the role would just put him on a leash to Batical. To add weight to the conversation and sway Luke's opinion, Van continues the prophecy that was started in the castle. The prophecy they left certain details out of.
The score continues. The youth will turn power to calamity and be as a weapon of Kimlaska.
It is the belief of the Oracle Knights who follow Yulia's score and believe in its history of 100% accuracy that Luke will not stop a war but will instead start one on his trip to Akzeriuth. Van continues to tell Luke how to save the people of Akzeriuth without abiding the prophecy fully, and how following this he should run away with him to Doth, avoiding war, skirting the darker elements of his preordained fate, and attaining his freedom. Natalia overhears the plan in secret from a position at the top of the stairs. Then Van makes his most shocking admission. Van confesses that he was indeed the one who kidnapped Luke 7 years ago. He done so to bring him to Doth as he once wished, and to help him escape the cruel hyperresonance experiments his family was running on him. Feeling that Van has always tried to do what's best for him, and feeling a sense of paternal guidance from the validation and support Van offers, Luke agrees to the secret plan. Luke and Van now reunite with the rest of the party. Since Mose has ships surveying the waters off the Kimlaskan port, the team decides to leave on foot, sending a decoy ship out as a distraction. Van boards the dummy ship to make it look more legitimate. Jade leaves to make preparations. Luke, Guy, and Tyr depart together. Annis catches up with the party on the way out, and Jade rejoins the party shortly after. Annis claims Ion was seen leaving the city with the Dark Wings, who were previously seen talking to Oracle soldiers. Since the God Generals are apparently watching the front gate, the party makes their escape through an abandoned factory in the old part of the city. The factory is suspiciously not under guard as it usually is. The soldier normally stationed there was apparently just called off to the castle according to a nearby civilian. This same civilian also claims to have seen a young lady head towards the abandoned factory just a moment earlier. As the party arrives at the factory, they find out just who that young lady was. Princess Natalia stands at the entrance, waiting, still holding Luke and Van's secret plans close to her chest. Much to the disappointment of the party, Natalia demands to accompany them. Not only would having a princess in their ranks run the risk of drawing unnecessary attention, but they also do not want her in harm's way on their watch. Nor do they want to watch over somebody who hasn't yet fully proven herself in combat. However, Natalia, having overheard Luke and Van's plans, uses this as leverage over Luke so that he can get the party as their leader to accept her into their ranks. And so it came to be that Princess Natalia would now join the party on their trip to Akzeriuth. The party makes their way through the abandoned mine, exiting the broad side of a cliff next to the ocean front where they cross paths with more of the God Generals holding Ion hostage. Luke immediately goes in for the attack, but the battle is a short one. As Luke crosses blades with God General Ash, he notices something rather uncanny. The man looking back at him from the other side of their crossed blades has his exact face. Before long, the God Generals make their escape, continuing to drag Ion through the desert. And so the party goes on the chase, heading to the local oasis to find more direction. At the oasis, there is no sign of the God Generals, though Luke begins once again to hear the voice.
Answer me, you drink!
Who the hell are you?
You know who I am. You look just like me.
For the first time, Tyr learns of the voices that speak to Luke. This time, however, the voice in Luke's head seems to have been Ash. The voice tells Luke that they're going to Zhao Ruins. But why? Why is it important to Ash that Luke knows where to go? Questions for another day. The party makes a quick course to the abandoned Zhao Ruins. When they head inside, they discover a large monastery deep within the ruins. The party comes across Largo, Sync, and Ash standing guard over Ion as he performs some sort of ritual. The God Generals inform that Ion cannot be interfered with while the ritual is underway. The party threatens to take him back by force, and a battle ensues against Largo and Sync. Though the battle is a tough one, Largo and Sync are overthrown. Ash expresses disappointment in his two comrades, and attempts to turn the tides of battle by engaging Luke one-on-one. Rather equal in their abilities, they match each other blow for blow. Luke notices through this that Ash uses the same combat techniques as Van. Sync, stating that Ash tends to get carried away when left on his own, puts a stop to the battle and forces Ash to sheath his sword. In exchange for ending the fight there, the 6 God Generals agree to let Foemaster Ion go, as the ritual they needed him for is now complete. As the party leaves, Largo recognizes Natalia. The other God Generals question how Largo knows Natalia, whether or not he's connected to her in some way. Largo admits the connection, but it was a long time ago and he states that he can't quite recall it. The 6 God Generals maintain an understanding that their pasts are not relevant and do not need to be disclosed, so they drop the conversation. Sync nonchalantly refers to Ash as the leftover ashes of the Holy Flame, and also remarks that he feels Guy possibly understands who Ash truly is. Once outside, Ion explains that the monastery at the bottom of Zao Ruins was one of the Sephiroth. To keep the Sephiroth protected, the Order of Lorelei placed Dothic seals over them. Only a Phone Master is capable of removing a Dothic seal, and this is why the God Generals have been so insistent on Ion's capture. To what end they require access to the Sephiroth, however, is not yet certain. The party returns to Cassidonia to catch a ship to Kitesor. En route, however, Luke begins to get another headache. A voice speaks to him again, and he loses control of his body.
Look at you. You're connected to me. You are me.
The voice demands Luke to turn his sword on Tyr. Luke is powerless to stop it. However, in a great exertion of will, Luke ends up collapsing. With Luke resting, the party becomes worried about him. Jade believes somebody had done something to Luke at Choral Castle, but he knows somebody who should hopefully be able to reverse it. Later on at the Malkuth Consulate, the party is informed Van is heading to Akzeriuth with a Vanguard unit. They attempt to immediately pursue him, but Guy collapses with a dark seal over him. Luke approaches Guy to help, but Guy strikes him. Just then, Jade notices the curse slot on Guy's arm. Guy has been having his brain monitored and is now under somebody else's control. This is the effect of what Sync done to Guy in Choral Castle. Ion claims that only a Phone Master can use Dothic phonic arts like the one used on Guy, so Sync must be an adversary of considerable power. It's decided to board a ship as soon as possible and put as much distance between Guy and Cassidonia, as the closer Guy is to his curse giver, the more power the curse giver will have over him. The ship they board carries them back to Kimlaska, and they head next for Akzeriuth. To get to Akzeriuth, however, means a brief trek through Dio Pass. At the top of Dio Pass, the party takes a break to give Ion a chance to recover his strength. Luke, drunk on the idea of becoming a hero in Akzeriuth, tries to force the party on ahead. However, they will not budge. They rest for the time being. Akzeriuth will just have to wait a while longer. On their way out of Dio Pass, the team has a chance encounter with Lagretta. Lagretta uses this opportunity to try and recruit Tyr to her ranks, but Tyr declines. A battle commences, but does not last long. When the action breaks, Jade spills some of what he's puzzled together and questions Lagretta about the God General's ongoing resurrection of Famicry, which he also finds out Ion was also aware of. The answers don't supply much aside from confirmation, and the two forces go their separate ways. Arriving in Akzeriuth, the place is in shambles. The party is told that Van arrived ahead of them, and he's attempting to rescue those who are trapped inside the mine's collapse far below the surface. Seeing that the town is just filled with sickly, ill people in need of medical treatment, Luke becomes despondent. This is not the hero's task he had envisioned. There is no glory or great feats of strength to find. However, there may be, in the direction Van had traveled. Luke takes off to follow in Van's footsteps, heading into the cave and down towards the collapse with his party in tow. A local guard named Hyman rushes in to inform the party that they believe the 7th phone stone was uncovered here. Tyr leaves to take care of business with the guard, as this directly concerns her mission as appointed to her by Grand Maestro Mose. Deeper into the mine, the party comes across many sick and collapsed miners, dying in the miasma, but Van's vanguard appears not to be there. Suddenly, Luke doubles over. The voice is resounding in his head, telling him not to press on. Ash's voice. Pained cries resound from above. Jade leaves to investigate. Luke and the remaining team team press on. Though the voice warns him again, Luke ignores it. Gradually, the rest of the party split off to protect the injured and dying, leaving Ion and Luke being the only ones to make it to the core. At the depths of the mind, they find Van standing before a Sephiroth. Van requests Ion unseal the Sephiroth, claiming it's necessary to revive Akzeriuth. Ion abides at Luke's insistence. Van proceeds into the Sephiroth. Luke follows, though the voice in his head desperately pleads, telling him what he's about to do will destroy Akzeriuth. With no reason to trust this voice, Luke continues yet again. Luke, believing he's there to neutralize the miasma, presses on into the Sephiroth, a large, otherworldly cathedral-like building. The heart of the Sephiroth is nebulous and maze-like, like veins twisted around each other, all reaching towards the same heart at the center. Closer to the surface, Tyr intercepts Jade. The Vanguard was wiped out by the same Oracle Knights who captured the Tartarus. The 7th Phone Stone was a sham. It was a ploy to capture Tyr to get Luke and Ion alone. Ash arrives, pleading for the party to stop Luke before they all get killed. Back at the heart of the Sephiroth, Van's plan finally comes into focus. Using an auditory control mechanism,
Foolish replica Luke.
Van causes Luke to open every phone slot in his body, creating a powerful hyperresonance at the heart of the Sephiroth. Ash arrives behind them, but he's just a moment too late. With 2 large eagles, Van attempts to save himself and Ash as the place starts coming down around them, fully willing to leave the others behind to die. Ash claims he doesn't want to work with Van and would rather die there, but in the iron grip of the eagle's grasp, he has no choice. Van, referring to Tyr by her full name, Mysterica, tells her to use the phonic hymns to save herself from what's about to come. He doesn't want his sister to die, but he escapes without her regardless. Tyr sings the hymn and captures the others with its influence. With the team safe, Akzeriuth quickly crumbles into the earth. Luke awakes, not yet aware of what happened. Bodies and rubble are everywhere, but the team lives on. Ion explains that the party has fallen into the Qlipoth, a land that exists beneath the surface of the Earth's outer crust. A small boy nearby, hanging onto the last shreds of his life, sinks into a bottomless pit of mud and miasma. The team is powerless and too late to prevent it.
Mommy, help! Daddy!
With a grim realization, the party has no choice but to acknowledge it. Luke, his ignorance of the world and his desire to be greater having been abused by Van, has destroyed Akzeriuth in its entirety. The land is gone. Its citizens, the men, women, and children, are all dead. Despite the morbidity in the air, time stops for no one. The party boards the Tartarus and sets a course for Yulia City. On the way, Tyr, having confessed to being from the Qlipoth herself, offers some explanation. The main world the party has trekked thus far is known as the Outer Lands. The Outer Lands are built upon the Sephiroth trees that extend from the inner world known as the Qlipoth. The Outer Lands actually began life in the Qlipoth, but 2,000 years prior, miasma enveloped Aldrint, infecting everything. However, Yulia's reading of the 7-part score brought about a means to escape destruction and bring about prosperity. A plan to raise the planet's crust using the Sephiroth. Only high-ranking elites in the Order of Lorelei know this truth. What Luke done in the Sephiroth, against his knowing, was disintegrate the Sephiroth tree that upheld Akzeriuth. His party doesn't want to hear his excuses or his attempts to escape his blame either. One by one, the party members leave Luke behind. All except for Mew. Perhaps the only one who can personally relate to Luke after having burned down the Liger's home. But Luke is above Mew and will not accept their sympathy. The party makes port in Yulia City, the home of the Watchers. At the entrance, Ash intercepts the party and derides Luke for referring to Van as Master even after all he just put him through. Hearing it from Ash, Luke seems to accept the truth of Van more. Ash regrets not being able to realize or stop Van's plans, but then places blame directly on Luke as well for using his hyper-resonance. Then Ash Ash tells Luke a story. Long ago, there was a noble boy of red hair born in Batical, and 7 years ago, that boy was kidnapped by a villain named Van. While in captivity, that boy was subject to an act of famicry. This act produced a replica of him, identical in appearance. That replica was then returned to the mansion in Batical. Upon coming to, the replica had no memory of the past, as, in truth, it never really had a past. It was told its name was Luke, and it had to learn to speak and walk all over again, as if a babe. That replica, of course, was Luke, a clone of Ash, the true child of nobility. Unable to accept the truth, Luke and Ash engage in battle again. Ash hates Luke, as he views him as an imposter that stole his home and his family away from him. The worthless replica that took his place in the real world, took his home, his life, and his family. He aims to kill Luke, but something happens. A white light, and then silence. Luke awakes, viewing himself in the mirror. He appears, however, to be Ash. Tyr refers to him as such as well. Luke's actual body lies on a bed nearby, recovering. For the moment, Luke can see through Ash's eyes and communicate with him telepathically, something made possible by Luke's nature as a perfect replica of Ash, and the experiment they ran on him at Choral Castle. Ash claims they opened Luke's phone slots at Choral Castle so that he can more closely monitor Van and stop whatever plot Van was working, but Ash ultimately failed. The party briefly visits the mayor of Yulia while Luke is still knocked out. Then they take off to the surface aboard the Tartarus with Ash in their ranks. Tyr stays behind to look over Luke. Ash states he will not work with the God Generals anymore, as his plans would get leaked to Van. The party agrees, as they all have new goals and they have no problem with him tagging along. They set a course for Belkend. Natalia tries to reminisce with Ash about the time she spent with him as a child. Ash, however, dismisses her and remains closed off. At Belkend, the city of phone machines, Ash meets with Spinoza, known as the traitor to Kimlaska. Jade accurately predicts he's the one who broke the ban on famicry, and that he also had a hand in Ash's kidnapping. Spinoza addresses Jade as Dr. Jade Balfour, inventor of famicry, creator of dozens of replicas. Jade doesn't deny it. However, he criticizes Spinoza for continuing to use the practice despite all they know and the dangers it entails, both technically and ethically. Spinoza insists he only wanted to assist in analysis on the preservation project, but didn't know everything that it involved. He then runs away before saying any more. As the party sets to leave town, they overhear two workers talking about being out of phonomin, a material necessary for making replicas. They can get more, but it's in a cave all the way out in Rhodesia. Ash decides Orshan Cave is their next destination, where he fully suspects to run into Dist, who will be needing phonomin to power the replica technology they had recently stolen. Guy decides he will not be accompanying them. He departs for Yulia City to look after Luke. Natalia at this point tries to refer to Ash as Luke, his original name, though Ash denies it, claiming the name to no longer belong to him. Arriving at Orshan Cavern, Ion stays aboard the ship while the party departs. Inside, they find a replica machine. The data it contains shows Van's research indicates the maximum size a replica object can be is 30 million square kilometers. A list of previous replica data is also found. The list shows residents of Hod who died during the war. Natalia surmises then that the God Generals are trying to recreate Hod and all of its inhabitants. They take the data and leave. Ash intends now to return his party mates to their homes and complete his journey alone. They set their destination for St. Binah, where they suspect Van to attack next. Luke awakes in Yulia City, splitting his connection with Ash. Having heard Ash's last conversation, he sets his sights on St. Binah. He pays Tyr a visit in a local garden room where she admires a small plot of selenias. The two have a heart-to-heart, and Luke begins to notice just how foolish he was, and how little responsibility he has taken for his own actions, always looking to hold somebody else accountable for his poor decisions.
You're right. Master Van said so. Ash said so. That's all I ever say.
Luke now commits to change, admitting his fault to Akzeriuth. He accepts he could never make up for it, but he'd be willing to die to make it happen if he could. In a symbolic display of his change and the shedding of his former self, Luke, using one of Tyr's blades, cuts his characteristic long red hair, signaling to the world that the next time they see him, he will not be the man that they remember.
Luke?
With this, I say goodbye to who I have been.
On the way to meet with Teodoro, Tyr explains to Luke that all 7 phonic hymns combined form the Grand Phonic Hymn. When combined with the Key of Lorelei, Lorelei can be summoned. The Key of Lorelei, however, as well as the Grand Phonic Hymn, are both missing. Luke, Mew, and Tyr meet Teodoro in the conference room. Teodoro explains how the fall of Akzeriuth was written in Yulia's score, and it was destined to happen. Luke is mad they didn't try to stop it. Teodoro explains the score must be followed to attain its promised prosperity. It is the role of the Order of Lorelei and the Watchers to ensure the score does not get compromised. Teodoro assures also that Saint Binah will not fall, as that is not written in the score. However, a battle will take place around it. Following this, Teodoro leaves for a council meeting. Before leaving, Tyr collects a book on phonic arts left behind by Van. A hidden page reveals the 3rd of Yulia's hymns. In Tyr's bedroom, she explains that her and Van were from Hod. Hod fell into the Cliffoth just as Akzeriuth did, and Van is still angry about it. Tyr also tells Luke a story of her past, how one day she had overseen Van and Lagretta talking in the garden of Selenia's. Lagretta suggested keeping tabs on Ash, as Ash does not have the courage to accept the people of the outer world being allowed to die. Knowing Van was going to bring destruction to the outer world, Tyr took to the surface to kill her brother, hence the assassination attempt at the manor. Tyr then gives Luke a book on phonology to help him understand and control his hyperresonance. They leave now via Yulia Road to investigate Saint Binah. Yulia Road unfortunately terminates at Aramis Springs, however, so the rest of the trip is made on foot. Just a short ways into Aramis Spring, Luke and Tyr come across Guy. Guy and Luke reminisce. Guy says he feels responsible for Luke, as he was the one who taught Luke all he knew after losing his memory, or rather after being created. He feels he's partially at fault for Luke's attitude and ignorance. Though there's much to atone for, the two decide to leave the past where it is, following a brief bit of wisdom.
You can't go forward if you keep looking back.
Toward the exit, the party runs into Jade, who came in search of Guy. Jade informs that Ion and Natalia were just captured by Grand Maestro Mose upon their arrival in Saint Binah. In the wake of Akzeriuth's disappearance, Kimlaska is preparing for war, and Natalia's death will be used as the catalyst to truly bring it about. The party changes direction now to head to Doth, where Ion is being held prisoner and where they can once again reunite with Annis. Along the way, Jade is especially hard on Luke. However, Luke bears it, knowing re-establishing trust will be an uphill struggle. Just outside of Doth, at 4th Monument Hill, Luke suggests telling his uncle about Mose taking Ion and Natalia captive. Tyr advises against it, citing they likely already believe she died in Akzeriuth. At the footsteps to the cathedral, the party encounters Annis. She's not happy to see Luke, but puts on a business mentality for the time being. She informs Jade that Ion is in the cathedral basement. She claims also that the war is already starting. The party's plan now is to tell the cathedral that the 7th phone stone was a fake. After speaking to Maestro Tritheim and telling him what they know, he suggests going to speak directly to Grand Maestro Mose. So the party descends into the Oracle headquarters. They locate Ion and Natalia at the lower levels. Ion has not seen Van, but the 6 god generals apparently tried to get permission to take him away. Permission Mose denied of them. Not too keen on remaining in the Lion's Den, the party makes a quick retreat back to the 4th Monument Hill. At 4th Monument Hill, and with Natalia alongside them in the flesh, they decide to visit and speak to Emperor Peony personally about preventing the war. They board the Tartarus and head to Gran Kokma. The Tartarus engines give out en route, so the party detours to Jade's hometown of Ketterberg to get it fixed. Once in Ketterberg, the party meets Nefri, Jade's sister. Before the meeting concludes, Nefri requests to have a word with Luke alone. While at the inn that night, Luke excuses himself to meet with her. Nefri tells Luke the story of why Jade created Famicry. As it goes, when he was 9 years old, Jade created the practice to replace a doll of Nefri's that she was distraught over breaking. Nefri discloses that as a child, Jade was vicious, but also insanely smart. His ability to cast high-level arts was unusual, as was his joy in attacking and killing harmless animals. It wasn't until Jade met somebody named Professor Nebulim that he started to change. Nebulim, a 7th phonist, seen Jade's immense gifts and tried to set him on a more constructive path. Unfortunately, one day Jade attempted to use the 7th phonon. However, being innately incapable, he unleashed an an art he couldn't control, knocking Nebulum out and setting the building ablaze. The fire was lethal to Nebulum, but Jade took their barely living body before they expired, extracted its info, and created a replica that sadly revealed itself to be a monster. Things didn't go to plan, but his research gained him national attention and a governmental job. Nefri fears Jade still wants to resurrect Nebulum, but Emperor Peony's influence on him has stopped his experiments with Famicree, at least temporarily. Back at the hotel, Jade confronts Luke, knowing full well what his sister had wanted to see him about. Jade clears some things up for Luke, stating he wants Nebulum's forgiveness, but that replicating them couldn't serve that end. Replicas have no memory. Jade fears he must live with his sins, the greatest of which being not understanding the significance of life or death. In the morning, the Tartarus repairs are complete. To get to Grand Kokma, the party must pass through Theor Forest. The entrance, however, is guarded, but the Malkuth guard let Jade and no one else pass. Jade ensures that once he meets with the Emperor, the rest of the party will be given passage, and he heads into the forest. The party then hangs behind, absent Jade. After a short bit of waiting, however, a pained scream breaks the silence. The sound came from within the forest. The party leaps into action and rushes into the foreboding woods. Within the shadowy forest, the party finds a downed Malkuth soldier claiming he was attacked by Oracle Knights. Tyr immediately points the finger at Van. The party then decides to chase after the ghost of Van. However, in order to not worsen political tensions, they must keep themselves hidden. As it is, they are trespassers in a foreign land, whose presence can be seen as an act of aggression. All goes well until the party arrives at the exit, wherein they are confronted by Largo the Black Lion. Luke goes in for the attack, but suddenly Guy stands in his way. Ion surmises that Sync must be nearby, controlling him. Tyr spots Sync in a tree. Natalia swiftly opens fire, shooting him down and temporarily breaking his control over Guy. The party attempts to question Largo, but before long, Malkuth soldiers arrive on scene, granting the god generals a window of escape and placing the party into custody once again. The soldiers take the party to Grand Kokma Port. Awaiting their arrival at the port is a man named General Frings. Frings, having met with Jade earlier, is already aware of who they are, and though he would like to release them, he is currently required to keep them as prisoners until they meet with the Emperor themselves. A concession is made, however, for Ion and Annis to take Guy to a private room and work on fixing his curse slot. Luke attempts to go along with them, however, Ion informs him that Guy still poses a threat to him, that Guy would not have attacked him if he didn't already have a strong, latent desire to kill him. He states that curses are ultimately only effective because they capitalize and exacerbate the feelings the cursed individual already holds. Luke agrees to maintain his distance and falls back. Although the party are technically prisoners, they are at least allowed to explore the city and the castle. Though Luke wants to be left alone, feeling conflicted over the revelation about Guy's true feelings, Tyr thankfully is nearby to once again talk some sense into him. With Luke's head back on straight, Luke and Tyr gather Jade and Natalia and head out to meet with General Frings and the Emperor. In Grand Kokma Castle, Emperor Peony indicates they have already observed Saint Binah beginning to sink. However, due to current political tensions, he's having trouble getting other governmental officials to agree to any sort of evacuation plan. At this same meeting, a proclamation from Kimlaska is read. A proclamation wherein Kimlaska directly blames Malkuth for the destruction of Akzeriuth and indicates they believe the whole thing to be a drastic measure to kill Princess Natalia and the tertiary heir to the throne, Luke von Fabra. Immediate sanctions are to be initiated, i.e. a declaration of war. Meanwhile, many people in Malkuth believe Kimlaska destroyed Akzeriuth themselves to create an excuse for war. Since neither country seems willing to help Saint Binah, Luke and the party request to be the ones to do it. Luke wants to make up for his part in the fall of Akzeriuth. They are granted the opportunity and head back to the inn to collect their remaining teammates. At the inn, Luke confronts Guy. Guy explains that his latent hatred for Luke comes from his being a descendant of Hod. The Hod War began on his 5th birthday. The first attack was led by Duke Fabra. Guy insists the Duke killed his whole family, so he took employment under the Duke to eventually exact his revenge. Guy, however, does not hold the entire Fabra family to account for the murder of his family, nor does he hold them to account for the destruction of his hometown, and so he and Luke put the past to rest and agree to continue working together. Reunited, the party heads to St. Binah. Here, the McGuffin family is in dispute. The elder pleads to his son that they need to evacuate or become the next Akzeriuth. His son, however, states that political tensions are restricting their ability to move without the Majesty's Majesty say-so, and so they must remain where they are. Luke thankfully carries this exact say-so, and the evacuation procedure begins. As the villagers are being escorted out, Dist arrives on scene with a score to settle with Jade, and they need to once again take Ion captive. The party has no issues overthrowing Dist. Following his escape, Jade orders a couple soldiers to stay on his trail. Then, like deja vu, the worst begins to happen. St. Binah shifts, suddenly dropping a few feet. A large chasm opens up, trapping some villagers on the other side of it. Given the slow rate of St. Binah's fall, the party makes the decision to head to Sheridan to pick up an experimental flying technology of theirs which can save the citizens. Once in Sheridan, however, this quick detour hits a wall. The aircraft they need has crash landed in a nearby danger zone during an experimental flight. The pilots too are still trapped inside. The village elder grants the party permission to use the flying machine known as the Albior 2. However, there are a couple conditions. The party fulfills the first by rescuing the pilot from the crash and recovering the hover drive. The second is fulfilled by stripping the needed parts from the Tartarus to complete the Albior 2. As the Albior 2 is getting worked on, knights arrive in the city and open attack. The elders form a defense for Luke and his party as the Albior's 2 build is finally completed. Inside the Albior 2, the party meets Noel, their own personal pilot. Noel flies the party to St. Binah, and just in the nick of time. As they board the last of the citizens, St. Binah falls into the cliff off. Luke, feeling the need to make up for Akzeriuth, gives an impassioned speech about why the onus is on him to fix what just happened to St. Binah. But a new curiosity arises. They were told quite specifically St. Binah would not fall as it was not written in the score. So they head now to Yulia City to see what can be done, to see if maybe St. Binah can return to the surface. At Yulia, in conversation, the party begins to notice Luke's change is more than just surface level, and gradually their trust in him is re-established. In a meeting with Teodoro, the party seeks answers to St. Binah's situation. However, he has no solid direction to offer, only indicating that the Key of Lorelei could be important. As he informs, the key has the power to control the Sephiroth on which the Outer Lands are upheld. However, after the planet storm was formed, the key was cast into the planet's core and lost. With the key lost and unable to lift St. Binah back up, they decide then that their course of action will be to simply prevent St. Binah from sinking into the Qliphot's ocean of mud. To do this, they must restore St. Binah's Sephiroth by interfacing with its passage ring. St. Binah's Sephiroth and sympathetic passage ring are located in a place called Shuri Hill, so the party heads there next. Inside the Sephiroth, they break the Yulian seal on the command console that interfaces with the passage ring. Tyr investigates the console. They discover Van has closed a valve on the Sephiroth, making it impossible to revive the Sephiroth tree. The passage ring also isn't actually usable at the moment. A new code will need to be imprinted onto it. Thankfully, Luke's unique phonic nature makes him ideal for the job. With his allies' guidance, he overwrites the code on the passage ring and successfully prevents St. Binah from sinking further. However, the party notices a new issue. The Sephiroth tree upholds the entire continent, not just St. Binah. Engeve will begin to sink soon as well. Immediately, the party leaves Shuri Hill and makes way for Engeve. From above Engeve's vast fields, they witness the start of all-out war. Kimlaska and Malkuth clash. The fields quickly stain with the blood of fallen men, and though the bodies pile up, it's nothing compared to what's about to come. The entire land on which this battle unfolds will soon be in the Qliphoth. It doesn't matter who wins here, they will all lose. The party devises a new plan in light of rapidly snowballing events. They decide it's time to split up. Half will go to Engeve to evacuate the citizens, the other half, led by Natalia, will head to Kitesor to plead for a cease of hostilities. In Engeve, they find there's too many citizens to board them all on the Albior for escape, so the children and elderly are flown to Cassidonia, while Luke and the party escort the rest on foot across the war-torn plains, avoiding combat wherever possible. At Kitesor, Princess Natalia looks to talk with Almundine to reverse the battle plans. Almundine, however, is currently en route to Cassidonia to meet with Grand Maestro Mose. Mose is currently filling Ion's role on behalf of the church, and will be the one to decide if the ongoing war is justified retribution for all that has happened. Natalia and her party head for Cassidonia. When they arrive, they immediately meet up with Luke and explain why the truce has not happened yet. The reunited party intercepts Almundine in the town square. Almundine is shocked to see Natalia and Luke both alive. During their conversation, Luke admits to and takes responsibility for the destruction of Akzeriuth. The party then speaks with Grand Maestro Mose. As Natalia demands the war be stopped, Grand Maestro Mose waves her off, stating there is no no reason to obey the orders of a false princess. It's at this time Mose reveals that Natalia is not a true heir to the throne. The royal family, as they are, all have red hair and green eyes, quite unlike her. He reveals as well that in confessional, somebody had told him that the true heir to the throne had been replaced by Natalia in secret. With this information, Natalia is to be placed under arrest as soon as she returns home. It is decided the battle will continue. Mose does not care if the battlefield sinks. As long as the war occurs, the score will be fulfilled. Ion announces now he'll be traveling back to Doth to speak with somebody on urgent business. Before he goes, however, he relieves Annis of her position as Phone Master Guardian. Ion then, in hushed tones, tells her to stay with Luke at all times to protect him and report everything she hears back to him. The remaining party makes plans to return to Batical to confront the king, a person Natalia no longer feels comfortable referring to as her father. But not before another detour stops them in their tracks. On their way out of town, a soldier remarks that there's trouble at Zhao Ruins. A massive earthquake has split the place in two, causing Cassidonia to begin sinking. Since there's no way to revive the Sephiroth tree holding up the land, they devise a plan to use the Sephiroth's energy to lower the land slowly and safely into the Qliphoth, and they head to the ruins. On the way out of town, Ash contacts Luke via telepathy. He requests to meet Luke at the oasis in the desert. At the oasis, Ash questions Luke whether something has happened to him, if his mind has been mixed with somebody else's. Luke denies this has happened, though the voice he hears may indicate another truth. Natalia becomes concerned for Ash, noticing a very apparent wariness. Ash brushes her aside, then informs the party that Engeve has already begun to fall, and the battlefield will follow shortly after. The party informs Ash of their plans, and he tells the team about how the passage rings are all connected on the inner side of the planet. Using the passage rings, they should theoretically be able to slowly lower the battlefield and Engeve together. With that info passed on, Ash leaves to hunt down Van, but not before Natalia tries once more to tug on his heartstrings and find a sign of the man she used to know. Unfortunately, he brushes this off as well. Later on at the ruins, Tyr activates the passage rings. Luke overwrites the code and inscribes a new command onto the passage ring. He then traces a line connecting a few of the Sephiroth so that they all follow the same command. The land begins to descend, slowly, gently. It appears to be a success. Suddenly, Tyr collapses. The party immediately comes to her aid, though she claims to be fine. Getting back to the outside world, they find themselves clearly in the Qliphoth. They head back to Cassidonia to rendezvous with Noelle and the Albior. Aboard the Albior, Jade has something he'd like to investigate in the Qliphoth. Flying around in the Albior, Jade confirms his fears. Sephiroths are deteriorating all around. All of the outer land is set to fall. The party heads next to Doth to consult the score. Doth is in chaos as the citizens are landlocked and refuse travel. Though the war has been put on hold over it, the townsfolk don't believe their neighboring lands have fell and are upset with the forced lockdown. The party heads inside to locate Ion. At the sound of footsteps, they take cover. Mose and Dist approach in conversation. Dist pledges to help Mose restart the war in exchange for Professor Nebulim's replica data. Mose agrees. Their first step in establishing the war is forcing Ion to dissolve the truce. They let slip that Ion is currently in the library, so the party takes off to collect him, then confront King Ingobert about Mose. In the library, Ion is found studying the closed score, a portion of the score withheld from the public. In here, he seeks answers to the state of things and hopefully a way to undo the damages that have already occurred, or at least prevent more of them. For the rest of the party, he reads aloud from the 6th phone stone.
ND 2000. In Kimlaska shall be born the scion of Lorelei's power. He will be of royal blood, with hair of red. He shall be called the light of the sacred flame, and he will lead Kimlaska Landvaldir to new prosperity. ND 2002. The one who would seize glory shall destroy the island of his birth, a land named Hod. War shall persist between Kimlaska and Malkuth for a full cycle of the seasons. ND 2018. The young scion of Lorelei's power shall bring his people to the miner's city. There, the youth will turn power to calamity and be as a weapon of Kimlaska, destroying himself and the city. Thereafter, the land of Rupnica will be enveloped in war, and Malkuth shall lose territory. Kimlaska Landvaldir shall thrive, and this shall lead to unprecedented prosperity. Ion! That's all the 6th phone stone says about the collapse.
The party believes Ash to be the one the score referred to as the scion of Lorelai's power. They determine now, though, that Luke's very existence has thrown the score off course, that he now exists outside of the score and is capable of altering the fate that has been predetermined for all of them. Suddenly, knights arrive in the library and the party makes a hasty escape. At the Albior, however, they are cut off by Mose and Dist. The two of them take Noelle hostage, forcing the party to be submissive. Mose berates Tyr for abandoning her mission to find the 7th phone stone. Then he breaks up the party, insinuating he'll be sending some of them back into Doth to restart the war, and places Luke in prison once more alongside Natalia. While being held, one of the knights refers to Natalia by her birth name, Meryl. Both are stripped of their rights of succession and blamed for Akzeriuth, then offered poison with which to commit suicide. They don't have to dwell on the decision for long, however. At the sound of a phonic hymn, the guard passes out. Tyr has arrived to save the day. Having been broken out of her cell, she saves the rest of the nearby crew and they leave to see the king with great haste. In his audience chamber, Ingobert waits with 2 of the god generals and Grand Maestro Mose. Natalia gets straight to business, asking the king about her birth and if there's any truth to Mose's claims. Mose cuts them off, however, claiming the queen's wet nurse has testified. Meryl is actually the daughter of the late queen's attendant, Sylvia. The real Natalia was stillborn. In the queen's grief, she accepted a replacement unbeknownst to the king. Mose then orders his 2 god generals to kill both Luke and Natalia. Largo, however, hesitates. Suddenly, Ash arrives to protect the party, also bringing to light the fact that he was the one who sprung Tyr from her prison cell. Giving the party some time to escape, Ash accuses Dist of betraying Van and leaking information to Mose. Largo, angered by this, turns on Dist. With even more aid from Pear and even the Dark Wings, Luke and the party make their escape. Suddenly, the townsfolk, aware of what's been going on at the castle in regards to Natalia, stand between the party and their attackers. Her bloodline makes no difference to them, for every step of the way, Natalia has been as true a princess as one could be, always looking out for the townspeople's best interests. One last attempt is made on Natalia's life by Goldberg, but Ash saves her once more and rejoins the party. Zao Desert is deemed too dangerous, and so the party decides to cut through Anistia Marsh to get to Belkend. Once in Belkend, the party learns that Van is also there in the phone machine lab. At his request, they agree to meet him. Van explains his motive is to end mankind's reliance on the score by destroying Lorelai. As he puts it, Lorelai is the source of man's power to read the score and the force driving this world into madness. He believes the score will cause the end of mankind. With replicas not being bound by the score, replicas will take mankind's place and Lorelai along with the score will be ended. It is also revealed that Van and Guy were once co-conspirators seeking revenge for the destruction of Hod. Ash arrives. The meeting ends when Ash and Van share a moment of tension, with Ash refusing to follow Van's orders. Later on at the local inn, the party meets with Ash and Noelle, learning that Ash had saved Noelle's life recently and that the Albior will once again be returned to their hands. Only it currently operates with only sailing abilities. Ash also hands a gift to Jade on behalf of Ion, The History of the Dawn Age, a text forbidden by the Order. Jade takes the night to read the book, and in the morning the party meets once more and discusses the current state of affairs. The planet's core is unstable, which causes the liquefaction of the Cliffoth. The instability is a direct result of the flow of energy from the planet storm. Planet storm energy flowing from and to the first and second Sephiroths, the radiation gate and the absorption gate, caused the shaking. However, if the planet storm were to be stopped, anything related to phonic energy would become incredibly weak or simply cease to exist. So the planet storm, at the very least, needs to remain active. The book Jade received details a useful machine that might help, so they seek local scientists Henkin and Kathy, whom they know to be sympathetic to their cause, to aid in its creation. In the meantime, the party makes a task to measure the frequency of vibrations in the Cliffoth. Such a thing, however, can only be measured at a Sephiroth tree that has not yet deteriorated and been lowered. The party heads to Doth to ask Ion for any such Sephiroth's location, and only discovers as they leave that Spinoza had been eavesdropping on them the entire time. Though Spinoza makes a quick escape, Ash commits to helping track him down. At Doth, Ion informs of a Sephiroth in Tartaru Valley he overheard Legretta talking about once. So they scoop Ion up and head over there. On the way out of Doth, Ash telepathically contacts Luke. Van knows of the plan to measure the core's vibration. He and the God Generals got in the way of Ash stopping Spinoza in time. To keep them safe, Ash moved Henkin and Kathy to a cargo ship to continue their work in secret. Arietta appears at the exit of Doth and attempts to abduct Ion. Pamela, Annis's mother and a devout practitioner to the Order, jumps in the way and gets struck. Jade acts fast and restrains Arietta. Suddenly, something in Pamela's speech triggers Guy's memory. Later on at the chapel, he tells them of his recollection, about how his family was killed many years ago in Hod. Way back when Guy was a child, he could hear Duke Fabra outside of his home in Hod, killing any phonist, man, woman, or child he came across. When they arrived in his house, Mary, Guy's sister, stood up to the knights and demanded they leave. The knights advanced towards Guy and she threw herself in their way. And she wasn't the only one. The estate's maids followed suit. One by one, they were struck down until Guy was completely buried in the corpses of slain women. The trauma causes memory loss and later fear of women. The team then apologizes to Guy for how they treated his phobia and they leave next for Sheridan. At the entrance to Sheridan, the Dark Wings, working for Ash, arrive and drop off Henkin and Kathy. The frequency counter is now complete. With the frequency counter finished, Henkin, Kathy, and Iamon get back to work on a machine that could counteract the vibrations in the core based on the data the frequency counter gathers. The party takes off to Tartaru Valley to bring the counter into its Sephiroth. At Tartaru Valley, Annis, chasing a bug, clumsily goes over the edge of a cliff. Tyr grabs hold of her by one arm. Guy rushes in to hold her as well, and they pull her back up together. His phobia, it seems, is largely gone. Further in, a normally peaceful creature, the Uniceros, attacks the party. When the action breaks, Mew converses with it. Apparently, miasma residing inside Tyr's body made it violent. The party continues. Ion opens the Dothic seal, granting the party passage into the Sephiroth. Tyr interfaces with the Sephiroth's control panel. Luke once again overwrites the previous code and connects it to the other Sephiroths, so the land will lower safely if the worst should happen. The frequency counter is fixed in place and the party returns to Sheridan. In Sheridan, the party discovers the team of scientists have used the Tartarus to build their machine into. Luke is having doubts. Feeling guilty, his party had made a decision that would dramatically alter how the world functions. He wants to speak to his uncle and get people on board with their idea before they launch it. But to get everybody on board would mean a return to peace on the surface. Peace treaty hearings must begin. Natalia, however, is not ready to see her father again, so she takes some time to think it over. Ash, who was in Sheridan looking for Spinoza, finds Natalia waiting outside. He gives her an encouraging speech and makes reference to a promise they made as children, while Luke watches on. Luke feels guilty for the things Ash lost out on, but Tyr encourages him to feel otherwise. With new determination, they set off for Batical the next morning. As a citizen of Kimlaska, Natalia resolves to convince her father to a peace treaty hearing no matter what. An official meeting is set up with the king in the audience chamber. The meeting is one of high emotion, but despite objection from Mose and Alpine, Ingobert agrees to their wishes for a ceasefire as well as a peace treaty hearing. And following an impassioned speech from Natalia, he refers to her as daughter once again. In a very touching moment, the two reunite. The party heads next to talk to Peony about a ceasefire and peace treaty. He agrees without issue. The conference to end the war will be held in Yulia City. However, to get there now, they will need a flight stone to get air travel capabilities once again. A flight stone is something they know Dist to possess, and so they head to Doth to intercept him. The party arrives in Doth too late. Mose and Dist have both left and have apparently been planning something in secret. The party tracks down Reiner, Dist's attendant. Tyr puts Reiner to sleep with a phonic hymn and takes the flight stone from his hands that he was luckily holding onto in Dist's stead. Before heading to Yulia, they head to Kessadonia to inform them of their plan. Aster is on board with the idea, but also informs that a lot of local citizens have been getting sick from the miasma. The most critically ill have been taken to Yulia City, but they're quickly running out of space. Emergency food in Kessadonia is also running low. Resting at the inn for the night, Luke despairs that he can only do so much. Tyr once again offers him words of advice. In the morning, the party heads to Yulia City. At Yulia City, the Council of Nobles deliberates and the peace treaty is signed. Guy, however, stops the meeting, needing to get something off of his chest. He confronts Ingobert, asking if he'll actually stick to the treaty this time, unlike when Hod was attacked. Ingobert insists that the attack on Hod was just to fulfill the score. It was predestined and was going going to happen regardless. Guy, angered by this, draws his sword on Ingobert. Duke Fabra, however, stands up for Ingobert. He admits he was the one who killed Guy's mother because she refused to aid in the invasion of Malkuth. Peony interjects next, stating that Kimlaska didn't destroy Hod, but rather it destroyed itself. Famacree research was being conducted at Hod. A child being tested on caused a hyperresonance that ultimately destroyed the whole town. That child was Van. Guy sheaths his sword in the wake of the revelations, and the meeting is called to a close. They head to Sheridan next to pick up the Tartarus. Due to the intense situations they'll be putting the Tartarus in, it's estimated the ship will only last for 10 hours. So in a desperate race against the clock, they take off. But not before a quick run-in with Legretta and the Oracle Knights. The Oracle Knights advance on the town quickly. Tamara and the others attack them with a flamethrower to buy the party time to escape. They make a fast retreat to Sheridan Port, where they're intercepted by Van, Legretta, and Spinoza. Kathy and Henkin, like Iamon and Tamara before them, throw themselves between the party and the enemy. The party makes their escape, but Van cuts down their defenders with one swipe and warns Spinoza that this is what happens to those who oppose him. Aboard the Tartarus, the party wallows in despair. However, Tyr refuses to allow herself or others to behave that way, even though Tyr may be the one who's hurt the most. The mission is underway and the Tartarus begins its descent into the core. On the way down, Guy sees a flash of something he seems to recall seeing when he was a kid. However, he can't really identify what it was. Arriving at the bottom, they exit the Tartarus to find Sync waiting for them. A fierce battle ensues. As they trade blows with the god generals, one of them lands an attack that knocks Sync's mask off, and the secret Guy realized about him back in Choral Castle is finally revealed. The man beneath the mask is a replica just like Luke, but this one is a replica of the Phone Master. Not of the Phone Master who currently travels with the party, but the original Phone Master. Ion divulges that he himself is also a replica of the original Phone Master, the 7th and final one. Sync laments how he wasn't good enough to be the real replica for the Phone Master, that it was determined he was too weak for the job. Ion offers him help and extends a hand for him to join the party. However, Sync declines his offer and moves forward with a different plan. Sync, feeling he'd only just been kept alive by Van because he's useful to him, backs up to the platform's edge and drops himself off, no longer willing to exist for anybody else's benefit. With Sync gone, the party performs the task they came to do. Just as the party gets ready to leave, Luke collapses. A voice that is not Ash's speaks in his head.
Set me free from the prison of this eternal cycle, a descendant of Yulia. I shall borrow your power.
The pain begins to fade. Then Lorelei speaks to Luke using Tyr's body. Lorelei tells Luke that something enormous is shaking the core and causing the Sephiroth to go out of control, draining their power. Though Luke's actions have quieted the core and stabilized the Sephiroth, Lorelei remains trapped. The message gets cut off. The connection to Tyr is broken and she collapses. The party decides it's time for a specialist to look at Tyr, so they leave for Belkend. At Belkend, Tyr gets the bad news. The process they've been using to lower the lands has caused an influx of miasma in her bloodstream, and if she continues, she'll only get more sick. Unfortunately, however, the party has no recourse, so they must continue. Before leaving Belkend, they get info from another scientist about the locations of the remaining passage rings: Mount Ronil, Megiora Highlands, the Absorption Gate, the Radiation Gate, and Padamia. They decide to go to Megiora first, where they find Legretta waiting for them. Legretta insists that Van is worried about Tyr and knows about her health. She questions Tyr whether the world is worth giving up her life for, and also warns that Yulia's score is incredibly accurate and they should reconsider going against it. It's also revealed that Van had taken Guy to see the 7th Phone Stone when he was a kid in Hod. So if Van knows the 7th Phone Stone, he already knows what's going to happen. The stone, however, disappeared into the core when Hod sank, which explains the mysterious thing Guy seen from the Tartarus during their descent into the core. With the meeting with Legretta well and over, Tyr notices something on the ground Legretta dropped. She picks it up and the party continues on to Megiora Sephiroth. Before Tyr uses the passage ring, Jade gives her a bracelet to put on that will measure the phonon throughput into her bloodstream. The point is to test whether the passage rings are actually at fault. Using the bracelet, the party is able to determine for certain that Tyr is actually a descendant of Yulia, but perhaps more importantly, they deduce the miasma is coming from inside the planet and that the core itself is infected. As the party party leaves Meggiora, Aston intercepts them and hands them a new aircraft, the Albior 3. However, the Albior 3 is not quite in their grasp yet. Spinoza, who had been eavesdropping nearby, boards the Albior 3 and takes off. The party pursues immediately in the Albior 2, trailing Spinoza until he runs out of gas, landing the Albior 3 in Belkend. With nowhere left to run, he finds himself cornered and he spills the beans. He feels guilty. He never wanted to betray the party, and he was only working for Van because he was scared. He took the Albior 3 as a means of escaping the life he got himself trapped in. To make amends and try to turn around the course of his life, he agrees to aid the party with the research he conducts. Jade and Spinoza swap notes, and Aston brings Spinoza to the research lab to get to work. The rest move on now to their next Sephiroth in Doth. Inside Doth Cathedral, the party comes across Mose. Mose tells them what door to go through to reach the passage ring and also explains the current state of affairs. That he has defected from the Order of Lorelei and half the Oracle Knights have followed him. Annis leads the way to the Sephiroth and the team treks inside. Tyr handles the passage ring routinely and the party heads back to Belkend. Back at Belkend, they discuss their theories with Spinoza. With their work at the passage rings and the core taking effect, the Qliphoth is quickly starting to harden and they should be able to safely drop the Outer Lands onto it. Once dropped, and once the passage rings are deactivated, the miasma ideally will have no way to escape the core and enter the atmosphere. While Tyr visits the doctor again, the rest of the party returns to the inn, expecting Tyr to return later. In the morning, it's discovered Tyr had left Belkend. Her and Ash were seen heading to the port with the Phonomen gathering team. In Tyr's room, they find Ore from Orshan Cavern, so they head there. At the Orshan Cavern entrance, Oracle Knights moving machinery try to stop them, but Lagretta tells them to stand down as per Grant's orders. Further in, the party discovers Van, Ash, and Tyr. Van and Ash appear to be fighting. Seeing them arrive, Van releases Tyr and Ash. Tyr warns Van that if he keeps doing what he is, the miasma will eventually destroy his body too. Van, however, is not worried about his body or health and is only concerned with freeing humanity from the score and giving them a new way to live and survive. He plans on creating a replica world. To make this happen, however, he must destroy Lorelei to prevent the 7th phonons within the replicas from separating, which would cause the replicas to disintegrate. With Lorelei gone, the aggregate of the 7th phonon will be gone, and without the 7th phonon, the score cannot be read, ergo, humanity will no longer be led by the score. Van leaves for the absorption gate, stating that he needs Ash to finish his plans. After inspecting a caged Cheegle nearby, Ash also takes off in a hurry. The party takes the remaining Cheegle and heads to Sheridan. At Sheridan, Tyr explains that she went to visit Van to make sure the miasma wasn't affecting him too much, and to try to convince him to drop his plan. Her words ultimately went unheard. The rescued Cheegle is handed off to Aston, and a new destination is set for Ketterberg, where they are to ask Nefri about the current conditions on Mount Ronil. In Ketterberg, it's discovered Dist is in town, and he's collapsed in the main square. Jade gets the details on Mount Ronil from Dist, then issues the military police to arrest him, and the party leaves town. Up Mount Ronil, they run into Lagretta, Arietta, and Largo. A three-way rivalry unfolds. Though Luke and his party seem to be the victors of the ensuing battle, the fight itself causes an avalanche, unceremoniously dumping the god generals into a ravine. Temporarily safe, they enter the Sephiroth and connect all of the Sephiroth through the absorption gate and the radiation gate. Something happens, however. Memory particles begin flowing in reverse, the result of Van's efforts at the absorption gate. This act will theoretically cause everything except the absorption gate to fall into the Qliphoth, and will also risk breaking the Tartarus at the core of the planet. The party heads to Ketterberg to get the Albior serviced, with intent to head to the absorption gate next. While Luke tries to rest, the voice he heard at the core enters his mind again. Luke tracks down Ash. Ash indicates Luke's headaches are a sign that the time is drawing near. Luke tries to make amends and establish a companionship with Ash so the two might work together to stop Van. Ash, however, turns him down. Ash states he is currently too weak to continue his mission, and so he entrusts the rest of it to Luke, for Luke to kill Van. In the morning, Luke and his team take off in the Albior. However, Ion is still not well, so he stays behind. It's a fairly quick and uneventful trip to the absorption gate, but once inside, an earthquake causes the place to collapse in areas, separating Luke, Tyr, and Mew from the rest of the party. Luke is injured and bleeding, and though Tyr offers assistance in the way of healing arts, Luke turns her down. They continue through the dungeon, deftly navigating the winding passageways that make up its maze-like structure. Eventually, the team reunites at a pivotal point right before the heart of the dungeon. Their final battle is closing in quick. Proceeding ahead, they find Van at the deepest depths of the absorption gate. He's quick to anger, mad that Ash is not there. He demands the party to stay out of his way, a demand they obviously cannot abide. Van tells Luke he was born as a throwaway pawn, a substitute to overthrow Yulia's score. Though Luke's existence caused Yulia's score to go off track, Van tries to downplay the significance of that and proceeds to beat Luke down verbally. But Luke is a changed man and no longer sees Van as the idol he used to. Luke refrains from calling Van his master anymore, and Van continues to treat him as worthless. Regardless of what Van wants to refer to Luke as, Luke has taken back his identity. Replica or not, Luke is Luke. Unable to win the fight with words, Van is left no choice. A battle commences. For Luke, this is a battle to stop Van from breaking Yulia's score and creating a world of replicas. The party fights with everything they have, driven to the brink of their potential with the weight of the world on the line. Though the stakes are dire, they unify their abilities and just manage to barely come out on top. Facing his defeat, Van plants his sword in the ground, then drops his body into the core of the planet. Shocked and saddened, Tyr is going to require some time to get over what just happened. Luke interfaces with the passage ring. He doesn't have the power he requires, but at that moment a new power comes through. That power being Ash, lending him a hand through hyper-resonance. Everything seems to be going according to plan. Then Luke hears a voice. The voice he's heard many times before that was not Ash's. It's asking to be set free. It says the one who would seize glory is trying to capture it. Luke believes the voice was that of Lorelei. Not fully understanding the message, Luke heads out to tell the party that the plan was a success. And he also sends his thanks to Ash telepathically, who was observing from another Sephiroth before heading back out into the open world. With Van dead and the land saved, all is once again well in the world. And their journey as they know it has come to an end. Luke returns to his mansion in Batical, no longer the boy he was, but a new man. The rest of the party goes their separate ways. Days without incident turn into weeks. A new age seems to be stirring. A month passes. Though the world has been rediscovering itself as of late, peace among the lands has largely returned. Luke awakes late one day and suffers a scolding from his parents who wish he'd apply himself more to social and political efforts like Natalia has, as she's been off traveling the world since they left the absorption gate. Word recently came in from Belkand as well that the planet storm has gradually become more active. While investigating the absorption gate in regards to the growing planet storm, it was found that somebody else had been there since the battle and Van's sword was taken. Something is definitely stirring on the outskirts of Aldrint, only the mystery is still too cloaked in shadow to understand. At a suggestion from his mother, Luke leaves the manor to go see his friends. Before leaving, Luke collects some letters from one of the servants in the manor. The letters are all from his former traveling companions and are letters Luke's father didn't want him to have, as he would rather Luke not associate with commoners. Luke and Mew discuss how Luke hasn't heard any voices since defeating Van. Then they board a ferry to go find Luke's friends. While en route, Luke reads the letters from his friends. Annis has more or less been killing time since the score has completely gone off track, and Doth hasn't found a suitable way to carry on. Guy has taken a position tending to Rapigs for a noble. Tyr is dealing with small fires in Yulia as chaos has completely descended on the land in the wake of the Outer Lands falling. Arriving in Sheridan, Luke discovers Ash currently commands the Albior 3, and has had control of it since the party last visited the absorption gate. Noel nearby informs Luke that Ash is currently in Yulia City. Boarding the Albior 2, they head for Yulia together. Once there, Teodoro states that Ash was around and asking if there was a way to get into the planet's core, but has since left. Luke picks up Tyr and the two discuss Van and the folly of his plans. They also discuss how Luke feels he doesn't exactly have a place in the world anymore, and that maybe he isn't that much of a person yet, since he's grappling with the understanding of who he is, Tyr suggests that he ask the people that he had traveled with. Perhaps hearing it from somebody else's mouth will help Luke better understand himself. Luke and Tyr travel to Doth next, meet up with Annis, and pay a visit to Ion. Ion talks about his experience as a replica. Annis fills everybody in that Van's original plans may still be in motion, and that somebody has been messing around at the absorption gate. On their way out of Doth, they come across Guy, who is in town on behalf of the Malkuth House of Lords. Evidently, Dist has broken out of prison and attacked a ship that was carrying Grand Maestro Mose to his hearing. When the ship was recovered, Mose was nowhere to be found. Guy informs Luke that Ash also warned him to watch out for the God Generals and that Ash will be heading to St. Binah next to execute a plan to set Lorelei free. With the party mostly reassembled, they head for St. Binah. In St. Binah, the eldest McGovern informs that Ash has gone into Shuri Hill. Inside the Sephiroth at Shuri Hill, the corpses of Oracle Knights are strewn about, a sign of trouble if ever there was one. Deeper inside, the party finds the Greta holding Ash at sword point, demanding he hand over the key of Lorelei. Ash refuses, and Tyr and Luke interrupt their battle. Greta explains that the God Generals survived the avalanche they were last seen caught in because of Arietta's monsters. She says they were too injured to help Van at the absorption gate, but they intend to fulfill his mission regardless. She escapes, warning Ash that next time she sees him, she'll be leaving with the key of Lorelei. Ash explains that Lorelei being captured means the amount of 7th phonons in the world will deplete, causing the planet storm to grow stronger as it compensates for the loss. This, in turn, will make the planet core's vibration worse, and the Tartarus will not be enough to stop it. Of course, this means the miasma is going to come back and start to poison the land and its people once again. Ash claims Lorelei already told them where he was being held, but Luke cannot recall their words, nor could he hear them clearly enough when they were spoken. Ash leaves shortly after. The party heads to St. Binah, where they assume Ash will be going, considering his injuries. Luke seems bothered by the fact that Ash could understand Lorelei's voice better than he could, again feeling as a lesser person, just a replica. When they get to St. Binah, Jade is there and has not seen Ash yet, but it's also possible Ash has been keeping himself hidden given the current ongoing commotion. Evidently, Malkuth's Cassidonia forces were attacked during training. Nobody knows yet who the attackers were. General Frings was among the injured. They head straight for Grand Kokma next, where the injured are being transported. In Grand Kokma, they find Frings, and his injury sadly appears to be terminal. In his last moments, he divulges to the party what he knows. Frings tells them they were attacked by one company of soldiers carrying the banner of the Kimlaskan Royal Forces. He also says they were poorly equipped, only a few had military uniforms, and they were using non-regulation tactics. He doesn't actually believe they were part of the royal military. As a final request, he asks to be taken to the sanctuary. As he dies at Yulia's altar, he says that nothing was written in his score about anything that has recently happened. He says he wished he could have lived a little bit longer in a world that was free of the score. Then he thinks back once more on his attackers, how they all had eyes as if they were dead. In his final moments, he asks Yulia to bring happiness to this new world, which has lost the score. In a meeting with Emperor Peony, he instructs Luke to ask Kimlaska for any details of the attack. He also informs he's been searching for Ash, as a witness has reported that he has the key of Lorelei. He would also like to use it to suppress the planet storm. Luke tells the party what Lorelei said to him at the absorption gate. The party explains to Luke that the one who would seize glory had a word in ancient Hispanian, Vandestelka, aka Van Grant. They now theorize that Sink and Van might still be alive in the planet's core and have trapped Lorelei there. The party is now confused as to why Luke doesn't hold any part of the key of Lorelei as was stated. Unable to come up with anything, they hope Ash could shed some light on the situation when they meet him next. Annis writes a letter to keep Ion informed, and they leave for Batical. As they approach the castle in Batical, they meet up with Natalia. She's confused about the attacks that killed Frings as well, so they head next to talk to the king. In the meeting, Jade theorizes the attack was carried out by replicas created by the God Generals and Mose, as per their dead eyes. Natalia suggests heading to Doth to hold a summit on what to do about the score's newfound unimportance, and to suggest no further radical actions be taken to fulfill it. As they enter Doth, Tyr struggles, weak from her sickness. They continue on to find Ion waiting at the cathedral, though Annis seems to have ducked out. Just as Ion is about to divulge his idea on how to cure Tyr's miasma, Annis suddenly busts back in. Miasma is everywhere outside. Annis grabs Ion and escapes outside before the rest of the party. As the rest run to escape, they find the cathedral's exit blocked by Legretta and Oracle Knights. Legretta abducted Ion once more and intends to have him read from the 7th phonon, the planet score. However, there is division in their ranks. Arietta stands between Legretta and the party. She refuses to let Legretta use Ion in such a way, as Ion is too weak. The act would kill him. Arietta tells them Ion has been taken to the Cathedral Sephiroth. While the God Generals are distracted, the party escapes. The party goes on the pursuit and spots Ion, Mose, and Annis heading to a secret passage. Mose is clearly using Annis's parents to leverage her. He attempts to get Annis to fight her old companions, just as he had forced her to spy on them since the beginning. But Annis refuses, escaping without a fight. They try to follow, but the portal she escaped through is sealed. However, they do find a letter Annis left behind for them. The letter mentions an alternate path in Mount Zalejo and also expresses her apologies for her betrayal. The party exits the cathedral. With the miasma back, Annis's parents taken hostage, and the God Generals alive, Doth is in chaos. At the gates, replicas are keeping the citizens trapped. Only these replicas aren't all long dead people. Many of them the party know personally, including Guy's dead sister Mary and General Frings. Tyr sings a phonic hymn to put the replicas to sleep. The effort obviously took a toll on her already weakened body, but there's no time for rest. They make an escape to Mount Zalejo. Inside Mount Zalejo Sephiroth, they find Ion being forced to read from the phone stone.
Within a fortnight, the city shall fall. The Kimlaskan army will stain the Malkuth throne with the blood of its last emperor. Their howls of victory shall resound throughout the land. ND 2020. A mountain of corpses shall bury the fortress capital. Death and disease shall envelop the city. The plague born thence shall become a new poison unto humanity, killing all within its reach. Its spread shall mark the true end of Malkuth. Kimlaska shall enjoy decades of prosperity as the plague of Malkuth grows. Ultimately, the plague will be brought into the Kimlaskan kingdom by a single man.
The light of the sacred flame shall approach a Kimlaskan city of phone machines, seeking a way to purify the taint. There, salvation shall be found through the use of a forbidden power.
Upon its completion, Ion collapses. He tells Luke he read the score for him, to show him one of his many possible futures. As a dying act, Ion exerts the last of his power to pull the miasma from Tyr's body. He thanks Annis for her years of service and departs from the mortal world. With the score read and Ion dead, Mose escapes and the rest free Annis's parents from their imprisonment nearby. Back in Doth, Arietta is mad at Annis for getting Ion killed. She challenges Annis to a duel, and Annis accepts, then runs away. Luke finds Annis in the chapel, racked with guilt, defeated and crushed by the results of everything she'd partaken in. Luke shares words of encouragement, and Annis shares her worries for her parents and why she worked with Mose, then agrees to rejoin the team for the rest of the journey. Following the instruction from Ion's reading of the phone stone, they head back to Belkend once again. Inside Belkend, the party plays witness to a citizen seemingly randomly collapsing and dying. A knight nearby indicates that they were the third one that day. Jade believes the local deaths are the cause of people having their data extracted for the purpose of replication. In previous testings, many originals died after having their data extracted. Rumor has it as well that a traveler who recently passed through town had been reading the score despite Ion's previous commands for score readings to end. They meet up with Spinoza next, who tells them that Ash had been by earlier to examine the flow of 7th phonon since the land was lowered. Spinoza suggests also that Luke used hyper-resonance to destroy the miasma. They're then tipped off that Ash might be at Mount Ronil, so they decide to head there next, followed by Batical. On the way over, Jade tells Luke that using the hyper-resonance to destroy the miasma would only be possible if he had something to amplify his power, something to reduce the strain on his body during the process, something like the Sword of Lorelei. One of the only other ways to get rid of the miasma would be to kill 10,000 people who can use the 7th phonon, thus releasing their phonic energy and neutralizing the miasma the world over, ideally calming the planet storm in the process. Arriving at Mount Ronil, they find the Dark Wings waiting. The Dark Wings assume the party is there to find the Jewel of Lorelei just as Ash is. The party heads to the Sephiroth to look for Ash, when right outside the door, Luke sees something in the snow and picks it up. It's a locket. He reads a small bit of it. ND 1999, the birth of my daughter, Meryl. Guy asks what he picked up, and Luke claims it was just some trash, and he hides the item. They locate Ash at the passage ring. He's lamenting that there's no sign of the jewel there either. Ash admits he hasn't been able to hear Lorelei since the land was lowered. He tells them though that from the start, Lorelei has wanted to be freed from the core. Lorelei contacted Luke and Ash because he thought that staying in the core would harm the planet. Apparently, however, Lorelei had disappeared from the planet's core when Van was defeated. Lorelei now claims to be trapped inside of Van. Ash is trying to free Lorelei from Van's body and send it back to the 7th phone belt. To do this, he needs the Jewel of Lorelei inserted into the Sword of Lorelei to form the Key of Lorelei. Ash, frustrated with Luke and his own lack of progress, leaves in a fit, refusing to work alongside the party. With the meeting with Ash concluded, they leave for Batical to look for the traveling scorer. As they arrive in Batical, they learn Mose has been arrested and brought in from Doth. Once in Batical, however, he escaped. The city is entering lockdown to be searched, so their objective now is to find Mose and the mystery scorer. They locate Mose at the port, saying that he can't afford to be captured now, not with Eldrant almost arisen. As they corner Mose by the pier's edge, Dist suddenly arrives on scene. Dist transfers a power to Mose that Mose believes will make him as powerful as a phone master. However, the art completely transforms him into a monster. Mose, undeterred by his new form and drunk on his new powers, leaves for Eldrant. Dist follows shortly after. With no sign of the mystery scorer and Mose gone, Luke suggests they head to Yulia City and tell Teodoro about Mose, but not before he has a private conversation with the king. Despite trying to see the king alone, through a clever lie, the entire party minus Natalia finds a way to be included in the meeting. Guy and Jade already know that the conversation Luke wants to have with the king is about the locket he found on Mount Ronil, the locket that seems to indicate even more about Natalia's blood family. In conversation, the king immediately recognizes the locket. Annis claims she had seen Largo with it before. The king suggests speaking to Natalia's wet nurse, who is now working for Aster in Kessadonia. Using the traveling scorer as a cover, they tell Natalia they're going to Kessadonia to investigate. In Kessadonia, as luck would have it, the false scorer is actually there. As if back from the dead, Sync stands before an audience handing out prophecy. If Sync survived the drop into the core, then Van almost certainly did as well. Sync claims that all score reading from now on will be done by the new Order of Lorelei and its glorious leader, Phone Master Mose. People don't seem to care that he is from a new division of the Order of Lorelei, or that the Order of Lorelei has split. They simply want to know the score as they have become heavily dependent on it for providing direction in their lives. Annis is upset by the whole situation. Jade suggests Natalia take her to the shops to cheer her up a bit, obviously a ploy to allow Luke to go speak to Natalia's wet nurse. At Aster's mansion, Natalia's wet nurse claims the locket belongs to somebody named Badak. That would be Meryl's father, her son-in-law, and the true name of Largo the Black Lion. She hasn't seen Badak since her daughter, his wife, passed away several years ago. They collect the rest of their teammates and finally get back on track, heading to Yulia City. At Yulia City, Teodoro establishes that the first order of business is to restore the Order of Lorelei, a task he will see to himself. While there, he explains to them what Eldrant is, as previously mentioned by Mose and the God Generals, a supposed glorious land from ancient Hispanian legend. He also informs that there's been an overall decline in 7th phonons. However, in certain areas, there's been a surplus. The party decides to search the listed hotbed locations, starting with the most suspicious of all, a location that seems to move about the ocean in an untraceable pattern. In doing this, they eventually find a landmass floating on the water, a landmass Guy feels he recognizes. As they enter, it's acknowledged as the Isle of Ferris, an island crushed by a tidal wave during the Hod War. Venturing inside, they find Arietta at the heart of the city. Arietta tells a story of how she was born here and saved by Van after it was destroyed. He stopped the land from sinking and used the place for Fomicry research. Arietta leaves shortly after, and they enter the building she seemed to be standing guard in front of. Jade attempts to shut down the Fomicry machine they find inside when they're approached by a group of replicas. The replicas seem to desire to be alive, something the party tells Luke he could stand to learn from. Suddenly, the facility begins to quake. Replica Frings enters, claiming Mose has moved ahead with his plan without them. The shaking intensifies. A large landmass arises from the water. Mose and the God General stand tall upon its surface. Mose loudly declares the dawn of the new Order of Lorelei, and the replicas acknowledge this place as the new Hod. After Mo's declaration, the replicas leave to wait for him at the Tower of Rem, the site of their covenant. Luke and his team attempt to gain access to New Hod, however the planet storm has created a protective barrier around the land, preventing the Albior II from getting in. They head next to Malkuth military headquarters to seek answers. While there, they learn that a great deal of islands had been vanishing lately, likely a result of a hyperresonance caused from their replication. On their way to see the king, the voice of Mose calls down from above the castle, disembodied. He openly blames the state of the world on Kimlaska and Malkuth abandoning the score. He announces Eldrint as the new home of the score and demands Kimlaska and Malkuth surrender or they will be made to through force. Mose struggles though, he sounds sick. Mentally, he's falling apart. On Eldrint, after his address, the god generals abandon Mose. They knew his body and mind could not withstand the power he was given. They merely used him as a pawn to further Van's goal. In a meeting with the king, Luke and his team suggest a summit take place between nations to discuss a plan against the new Order of Lorelei. The summit is to take place in Doth. Outside the castle, Largo is waiting. He informs them Arietta is awaiting their arrival in Chigo Woods. In Chigo Woods, Annis tries to meet with Arietta alone to privately make her pay for what happened to Ion. However, claiming Ion meant a great deal to them as well, the entire party goes in. Annis struggles with the party accepting her as a friend after all she had done, but slowly she starts to open up again. Inside, Largo waits with Arietta. He's merely there as a mediator. Avoiding battle, as it seems, is not an option, and so the two give it their all, eventually ending once again in Arietta's defeat. Largo collects her knocked out body and sets to leave when Luke suddenly refers to him as Badak.
That name died long ago, in the Sea of Batical, where my wife sleeps.
Luke gives him back his locket and asks if he'll introduce himself. Largo refuses and instead promises that the next time he sees them, he will kill them. They head next to Yulia City. At the entrance stands a rather despondent replica, something that apparently had been happening a lot recently. Replicas losing their memories, acting strangely, showing up to their own funerals. The public doesn't understand the replicas and many mistreat them. In the wake of all this, Yulia has become a refuge for them. They meet with Teodoro next, who agrees to a summit. Following that, they head to Batical. Batical now plays home to a large replica population. Many wander in aimlessly. Some are there because it's where their original self is from. The populace generally treats them unkindly. One replica absent-mindedly repeats the Tower of Rem over and over, a result of a memory that had been implanted into him when he was created. The Tower of Rem was created in the Dawn Age to use for interplanetary travel should the original plan of raising the Outer Lands fail. The tower, however, was abandoned once it was rendered unnecessary. Outside the castle, the populace are protesting. They want the king to surrender to the new Order of Lorelei. Luke hears the people refer to the replicas as human things. He tries to convince them not to listen to the score, that the system is flawed anyway. In their meeting with Ingobert, he laments the issues the influx of replicas have caused. Ingobert agrees to the summit and also suggests joint military action against the new Order of Lorelei. He mentions also that many replicas have left town to head for the Tower of Rem. Shortly before the summit is set to occur, Ingobert requests a private meeting about Natalia and Largo. He asks for time to decide whether to tell Natalia the truth or not. Jade leaves for Malkuth aboard the Albior. The party intends to head to the manor when Luke hears Ash's voice again. He tells them he's close by and wants to meet. Begrudgingly, they agree to meet at the manor. During the meeting with Ash, Luke remembers something he was told earlier, a suggestion about neutralizing the miasma with a hyper-resonance and the Sword of Lorelei. It would cost a life, but it could work. Neither Ash nor Luke, however, are ready to die. Luke leaves Ash with his real parents while he and the rest of the party wait in the courtyard. Luke takes his time to talk with his friends about his lingering inferiority complex, though it's Ash returning to join them who sets him straight, helping him realize how much he really has in life and how little excuse he really has to wallow in his own misery. Despite being the original, Ash is the one who lacks a real place in their current location, not Luke. As they leave Batical to head for the summit in Doth, they run into Spinoza once more. Spinoza informs the party that Ash had been asking about how to neutralize the miasma using hyperresonance. Spinoza theorized a way that Ash seems intent on setting into motion. To gather the 7th phonons necessary to make the neutralization work, it seems Ash is intending to use the gathering of the replicas at the Tower of Rem. At the Tower of Rem, the Darkwings inform that Ash already believed he was going to die soon, so he intended on sacrificing his body to clear the miasma to save Princess Natalia. Guy and Luke spot Mary on an elevator in the Tower of Rem. Her and the other replicas regret the fact that they have no place in the real world, that the real world belongs to the originals. They believe at the top of the Tower of Rem they will be given salvation and brought to the new land of Hod. They also despair over the fact that the originals want them to give up their life to save them. Dist arrives and interrupts the conversation. He fires into the crowd of replicas with his machine. He claims he'll be resurrecting Professor Nebulum, an action that makes Jade commit to killing Dist once and for all. An intense fight ensues, but Jade and the party exit victorious. Dist tells the party that Mose will never come for the replicas, that once Eldrant is fully operational, the Tower of Rem will be burnt to ashes. The replicas now feel confident in the idea that they have nowhere to go, that they don't belong. Ash shows up and uses this to his advantage, leveraging their emotional state to get them to become sacrifices to stop the miasma. With more to prepare for, Ash takes off again. At the bottom of the tower, the Darkwings inform that Ash is on his way to Doth. In Doth, they discover Ash had left for a Sephiroth. They fill Peony, Engelbert, and Teodoro in on Ash's plans. There's talk about the pros and cons of Ash's plan and how there might not be any other solution. That is, of course, besides Luke taking his place as the sacrifice. Luke says he needs time to think about whether or not he can do it, prompting a stern and much needed grilling from Guy. Natalia ensures Luke that he's not a fake or an imposter like he feels, that he's another of her childhood friends and very real and consequential indeed. Tyr tells Luke that regardless of his decision, she'll accept it and accept that he actually thought it through, but that doesn't mean she's going to agree with it. Even if he goes through with it and the plan is a success, she'll hate him for it. They meet Ash in the entranceway of the monastery. He still hasn't found the Jewel of Lorelei and instructs the party to join the search for it. Luke and Ash fight over who should die to stop the miasma. Luke agrees to take Ash's place, but this only makes Ash more angry. Their debate turns violent and they cross swords once more. When they're broken up, Ash claims he's going to be the one to die because Luke took his entire existence. Luke has reasons to live. Ash, on the other hand, feels he has nothing to go back to when this is all said and done. Natalia pleads with Ash. Ash doesn't want to die, but there's no other way. Luke tells his friends that he's made up his mind and that he intends to die. They head back to the Tower of Rem. The replicas are gathered at the top, and Ash is nowhere in sight. Luke's final moments close in. The replicas at the top of the tower have decided to give up their lives. Luke, as well, has decided the same. He steps up to set the act into motion when Ash arrives on scene. Ash announces to the replicas that he is the one who will die with them, and he issues them an order to obey his commands. Natalia pleads for him to stop, and Luke backs her up. Ash gets angry and tells them both to leave. Luke especially needs to escape, as the impending act will cause him to die along with all the other replicas if he's too close. Luke once again claims he's the weaker between the two of them, that he is unneeded and he should be the one who dies. That way Ash, the one who can speak to Lorelei, can finish the quest. This only makes Ash more angry. He chastises Luke for calling himself unneeded. It makes Ash angry that Luke considers himself unneeded, as he still views Luke as the person who has stolen his entire life. By saying Luke is unneeded, it's like saying the life Ash should have lived and the person who, for all intents and purposes, has been filling his role, has been a waste. Ash hates the idea that his life could be usurped for what amounts to nothing or unneeded. Unable to come to a conclusion, they square off. The two of them grapple over Ash's sword when suddenly, with both of their hands on the hilt, the sword begins to glow. The Jewel of Lorelei is nearby. Luke kicks Ash away and Jade restrains him. Luke raises the weapon. Tyr pleads for him to stop and tries to run to him, but Guy holds her back. With power coursing through him, Luke plants the sword. As the sword's power is unleashed, Luke screams internally about how he doesn't want to die. For nobody but himself, he wants to live. Short moments pass and it seems the plan is failing. Ash, realizing a truth for the first time, that Luke actually carries the Jewel of Lorelei with within him, runs in and grabs the sword with Luke. He tells Luke he's going to give his hyper-resonance some power, but that he doesn't intend to die with him. The plan begins to work, and the miasma that spread throughout the world begins to evaporate. The party makes one final promise to the replica of Mary, that they will find a place for the replicas to live in honor of their sacrifice. When Luke comes to, he's lying on the ground holding hands with Ash. He gets up, wondering why he's still alive. He then finds the Jewel of Lorelei in his hands. The jewel that had been inside of Luke for quite some time now. The jewel's phonon simply fused with his body when he received it, and he didn't realize it until his body began to disintegrate during the neutralization process. Ash doesn't stick around long after waking. Jade is concerned about the amount of power Luke exhibited and requests a trip to the medical office in Belkin. There, Luke receives the news that his cellular structure is disintegrating, and very soon, he will die. There is no cure, only treatments that may slow the process. Luke intends to keep his condition a secret. After telling his friends that nothing is wrong, Jade confronts him in private. Jade knows he's lying, and he knows exactly what Luke is going through. He tells Luke not to use his power any more than he must. Mew, however, overhears the whole thing from nearby. They head back to Batigal to deliver their report. In Batigal, Mew tells Tyr Luke's secret. Tyr confronts Luke. It's all very sad, but she agrees to keep his secret. In the morning, they head to the castle to meet with an emissary from the New Order of Lorelei. The emissary is Largo. The meeting at the castle does not go well, resulting in a declaration of war with the New Order of Lorelei and also the hint that Van may still be alive and gathering power. At the meeting's end, Ingobert requests Luke's company along with Natalia, Jade, Tyr, and Annis. Having had time to think it over, Ingobert finally reveals the truth to Natalia, that her real father is none other than Largo the Black Lion. Natalia is hurt by the revelation. She runs out of the room in an attempt to chase down Largo, needing to hear the truth straight from the lion's mouth. Largo tells Natalia of why he joined the 6 God Generals. He tells her of how he returned home one day and neither his newborn child nor his wife were anywhere to be found. Several days after his wife, Natalia's birth mother, had gone missing, her body was found floating in the harbor of Batigal. It was determined that she had killed herself in a fit of hysteria after her newborn child had been taken away from her. Largo wants to destroy Lorelei to destroy the score. In his mind, that would be destroying the very thing that predetermined the death of his wife and the kidnapping of his child. However, lacking the ability to actually find and destroy Lorelei, he turns to a more lateral solution, making Lorelei powerless via replacing the world's residents with replicas, something not bound by the score's prophecies. After Largo leaves, Natalia and the party head to Yulia City to devise a plan to stop the planet storm and gain entry to Eldrint. Those in council require some time to study old documents for any way to use the key of Lorelei to stop the planet storm, so the party hangs back for a brief moment. In the interim, Luke overhears a private conversation between Natalia and Tyr. Tyr talks about how she felt when she found out her brother had an evil plan, and through Tyr's experience, Natalia begins to adjust to her own circumstances with Largo a little better. They also discuss the hope that Luke represents as a replica who had broken through Yulia's score. They also discuss how Luke's change as a person has influenced their change as well. Later, the meeting with the council reconvenes. Knowledge is now imparted onto Luke of how to use the Jewel of Lorelei's unique phonic art to activate a glyph that Lorelei left on the land using the Sword of Lorelei, so they might temporarily deactivate the planet storm. The ritual is to be performed at the Absorption Gate. Deep in the Absorption Gate, they find Ash locked in battle with Largo. Mose stands behind Sync, Lagretta, and what appears to be a replica of Ion. Suddenly, Van materializes before them. Mose receives a fragment of the 7th phone stone from Van and gives it to Ion, and then they depart. The party attempts to follow, but Lagretta steps in their way. Van explains how a phonic hymn saved him in the core, then leaves to see to Mose, who is expected to go mad shortly, but not before trying to convince Ash to follow him again, who, of course, refuses. Having failed there, he attempts to ply Luke, and fails once again. He leaves along with Lagretta. The party dispatches Ash to follow them while they hold Largo at bay. Their battle is a fierce one that takes Luke to his very limits. Luke's failure is imminent, however Natalia lands a well-placed shot with her arrow. The blow is a fatal one. As Largo breathes his final breaths, he says one last farewell to Meryl, his daughter.
Farewell, Meryl.
Father!
Following the battle, Luke conducts the ritual they came for, only something happens. He experiences falling through the core and begins to see the planet's memories. A vision of Van falling, encased in the light of Lorelei. Sync falls in as well, and Van transfers some of Lorelei's power to him. In this vision, he also sees Ash battling with Sync. He takes the jewel from Ash. Luke awakes. The ritual was a success. Immediately, they take off to go after Ash and Van. They find Ash further up in combat with Sync. The party then stops the fight. Van is found outside with Mose, making Ion's replica read the 7th phone stone. The phone stone predicts the end of Aldrint to the miasma. Luke approaches Mose, whose body begins to act violently to his transformation, and he takes off into the sky. Van confronts Luke, grabbing him and discovering he holds the jewel of Lorelei. Lorelei then, from within Van, reacts. Lorelei's power begins to release, but Van suppresses it and takes off. The party discusses how, in order to lessen Van's power, that of Lorelei's, the planet storm will need to be stopped. First, however, they decide to take Ion's replica, who has been discarded and left behind, to Doth. Annis names this replica Florian, then they leave for the Radiation Gate. Luke conducts the same ritual at the Radiation Gate as he did at the Absorption Gate, when suddenly a large and grotesque Mose descends upon them. Mose proves to be a tough adversary, but not quite tough enough. Having won the battle against him, they head next to Grand Kokma to meet with Ash. Luke gives Ash a speech declaring his independence as more than just a copy of him. Ash follows this up by giving them insight into who he is and how he now struggles with his worldview, seeing his former idol Van be disgraced. They head next to Cassidonia to plan their final attack. In the 24 hours prior to the final attack, the party splits up and tackles some of their more personal issues and talks some of the future. Guy and Natalia discuss Ash and Luke, how they battle to better understand themselves as people and to acknowledge the fact that they are not one and the same person. Annis and Jade speak in a bar. Jade says when all is done and over with, he would like to help raise replicas to a status of equality to humans. Annis commits to being the first female phone master, giving up on her idea of marrying into money. Tyr and Luke sit out under the stars discussing the next battle. Luke hopes his body will last until then, and Tyr gives him further encouragement. Luke takes stock of the moment and of his friends and of himself and realizes for once, despite all that is happening, he's happy. The next day, they wake and board the Albior and head towards Eldrint for their final confrontation.
This is probably the happiest moment of my life.
What?
I mean, I wish I could think it wouldn't be.
A barrage of fire erupts from Eldrint. Noelle deftly avoids the shots and swoops the Albior through to land on its surface. Every step of Eldrint is enemy territory, and their foes wait around every corner. The first of their foes they encounter is none other than God General Lagretta. A heated battle ensues that ultimately results in Lagretta suffering a mortal wound. Before succumbing, however, she confesses her love for Van. Following her passing over, the party continues on, but it's not long before they come across a trap separating Luke from the rest of the party. Luke, to his surprise, finds Ash also fell into the same trap, and so the two agree to unite their forces and continue. However, enthusiasm for their newfound alliance is short-lived when it's discovered that in order to escape the room, one must stay behind. Luke and Ash duel over the responsibility, with Luke coming out on top. Ash surrenders the sword of Lorelei to him when suddenly Oracle Knights arrive. Scrambling, Ash opens the door for Luke's escape, then stays behind to fight the Knights. Ash is very outnumbered. His body is weak and fading. He strengthens his resolve, asserts his identity, and goes in for the kill. Luke reunites with the party. As they venture through Eldrint, they discover the recreated Hod, where Guy's mansion stands remade, as well as the fireplace he was attacked in front of, where so many servants died to save his life. Tyr recalls a conversation she had with Van from when she was very young, and they reason out that phonic hymns are the key to reawakening Lorelei. Once awakened, they must use the key to free Lorelei. Ash, still locked in combat, tries to contact Luke, but it breaks his concentration enough for an Oracle Knight to get a sword through his back. Then two more drive in through the front. A sensation sweeps through Luke and he becomes aware that Ash had just died. In the aftermath of his passing, some of Ash's life force goes through to Luke. Luke breaks the news to the team. Natalia becomes distraught. Suddenly, a trap appears beneath her feet. A burst of energy leaves Luke's body, destroying the trap. With the power he absorbed from Ash, Luke can now control second-order hyper-resonance. Sync, who has been watching nearby, engages the party next and is swiftly defeated. Following his defeat, Natalia finds herself grappling with Ash's death. Jade steps in to slap some sense into her, which seems to do the trick. With the key of Lorelei being fully assembled, the party moves in for the final battle. As they confront Van, they find he already knows what second-order hyper-resonance is, and understands that Ash is now one with Luke. Once more, he offers Luke to join him, and Luke denies. Luke goes on to tell Van that he always wanted him to acknowledge him as a human, not as a replica. Luke talks about his purpose for living. What he came to find was really necessary for one to justify simply being alive. That is, ultimately, nothing. He doesn't need to justify his life to a purpose, and he no longer needs Van's validation. Tyr tries one last time to get Van to reconsider. Van declines, and the rest of the party, one by one, confront and thwart his twisted logic. With no other recourse, the battle commences. In the midst of the action, Tyr sings the phonic hymn, and it seems to have an effect. Luke and Van clash. Van unleashes Lorelei's power. Tyr continues to sing. Luke executes the second-order hyper-resonance, and Van is defeated.
The seventh melody. You've learned it, Tyr.
I remembered. You sang it to me while I cried. You knew what the phonic hymn meant. You were telling me everything, right from the start. Thank you, Van.
Farewell, Mysterica.
Master Van!
Stop! After all that's happened, you still call me Master. You fool. Forgive me, my brethren.
Master Van! Thank you!
Goodbye, my beloved brother.
Eldrint begins to collapse. Luke offers to stay behind to free Lorelei. Jade shakes his hand and tells him to come back alive. Guy tells him he'll be waiting. Annis tells him to come back so he can be her patron in reforming the Order. Natalia tells him to come back to live not for Kimlaska, but for himself. Mew just keeps it simple. Tyr breaks down.
You have to come home. You have to. I'll be waiting. Always.
I will. I promise. I'll come home.
Luke, I love you.
With that, the party departs, leaving Luke to fulfill the final stages of his journey. He activates the Key of Lorelei. A protective barrier forms around him as Eldrint begins to collapse. As he falls through the rubble, Ash's body descends into his arms. Lorelei appears and acknowledges Luke in a manner he's always longed for.
To think the future I saw would be rewritten. You have done admirably.
As the party watches from a distant shore, Eldrint collapses into the ocean, splitting apart. Luke, with Ash in his arms, is enveloped in a blinding white light and vanishes into the unknown. Eldrint, Luke, and the threat of the enemy are gone from the world. The final sacrifice has been made, and the world can live in peace once more.
You didn't come. I believe your presence was requested at Luke's coming-of-age ceremony at the Duke's Manor.
I'm not interested in some ceremony in front of Luke's grave.
That's why the both of you came here, isn't it?
He said he'd be back, so let the others sit around and tell stories at his grave. But I won't be joining them.
We should be heading back soon. The valley is dangerous at night.
Why are you here?
This place has a nice view of Hod. And also, I promised someone